The young master is dead and he has not yet married. The baby in my belly is his only child. And I was thinking, how am I going to survive this round? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Lu Xinghe is dead. Died in the belly of the matchmaker in the flower shop. The wind is coming. For a marquise with only one child and thousands of acres of fertile fields. This way of death was somewhat disgraceful. The lady immediately sealed the gate of Jinghong courtyard. All the maids in the courtyard were dealt with according to their closeness to the young master. All the maids who were only responsible for cleaning and doing chores in the courtyard were sold. Those who were responsible for lighting the stove, feeding the sparrows, and passing things were immediately kicked out and assigned to other jobs. As for the last 4 maids who served the young master personally, the lady's eyes moved between the 4 of us. Since these are my son's 4 favorite girls, let them go and accompany him. All the blood in my body seemed to solidify at that moment. Nanny Zhou, who was beside the lady, glanced at me and whispered something in her ear. The next second I was pulled up from the ground. Madam lifted my chin with her Danko-painted fingers. Have you ever used this? She is indeed a foxy one. Since you like to seduce people so much, let her go and accompany me. Send the remaining 3 to the family temple and recite scriptures for my son. 3 sentences determine my life or death. When I was nailed into the coffin, I was still vaguely conscious. The young master's cold, blue body was huddled next to me. No matter how precious the sandalwood is, it cannot cover up the stench of a rotting corpse after 7 days of mourning. Nanny Zhou's voice came faintly from outside. Miss Qingping is a righteous woman. She is grateful for the kindness of the young master and is willing to go down to accompany the young master and die by touching the coffin. Madam has said that from today on. Miss Qingping is the young master's aunt. Don't call her by the wrong name next time you mention her. My mouth was gagged tightly and my hands and feet were tied. Thick soil buried layer by layer, squeezing out the thin air. Panic and suffocation swept over. I struggled desperately, like a fish suddenly thrown onto the shore. I want to live. I don't want to die. But that didn't work. The lungs were squeezed. The remaining air was sucked away, and despair and pain came together. All I can do is slowly feel the process of death. My consciousness seemed to fade away for a moment. However, the next second, everything in front of my eyes suddenly became bright. I jumped up almost subconsciously, and immediately put my fingers into my mouth, trying to dig out the towel stuffed in my mouth. Something fell to the ground with a loud and crisp sound. Hey, Sister Qingping, what's wrong with you? Green Ivy's voice seemed to come from the sky. Slowly the sight returned. I saw the young master's favorite root kiln celadone vase was broken into pieces at his feet, and in my other hand I was holding a box of bird food. The young master's newly bought jade-topped golden bean was frightened and flapped its wings to fly away, but was restricted by the thin gold chain on its feet. It flew up and was thrown down heavily. Being nailed into the coffin seemed like an extremely real dream. The feeling of being unable to breathe is both real and unreal. Green Ivy called me again. Sister Qingping, are you feeling unwell? I calmed myself down and gave her an ugly smile in return. It's okay. I just had a nightmare. It will heal after a while. However, reality never gives me any chance to escape. Before I could even comfort myself that it was all just a daydream that was too real, Nanny Zhou's voice rang out at the door. Here, guard the gate. All the servants in Jinghong courtyard. Don't move a single one. Exactly the same. It's exactly the same scene as in my dream. Next, the lady should come in and announce the master's death and my death sentence in a few casual words. That was not a dream. There was too little time and the lady moved too quickly, leaving me no time to think. Nanny Zhou and the maid came straight towards me. Green Ivy knelt beside me, crying bitterly. I kind of knew what she was crying about. The young master took me in, but he didn't have the chance to touch her. She had long regretted this, but because the young master had favored me recently, she had no choice but to stick to me and call me sister. At this moment, she probably thought that I could rely on the young master's favor during his lifetime to gain the title of concubine in front of the lady and escape. I did earn the title of aunt. What a pity that she is a dead aunt. I don't know what her expression will be when she hears that my wife wants me to be buried alive and asks her to go to the family temple. Everything was exactly as in the dream. The lady's look of disdain made my whole body ache. Have you ever used this? She is indeed a foxy one. Cold sweat dripped down my back. I know what the lady will say next. I had to say something. Do something. So that the lady could take back her decision. Madam Wrong Bing. I lowered my eyes and tried to suppress the tremor in my voice. Master, you have mercy on me and do not despise my clumsiness, allowing me to serve you closely. This is my blessing. Master, I should repay you with all my heart and soul, even if I have to follow you. It is my duty, but my period has not come yet, and I don't know if I am pregnant with the young master's blood. Madam, please consider the young master's blood in my belly and allow me. The lady's fingers suddenly tightened. The long, well-maintained nails dug deeply into the soft flesh of my chin. So, you are my son's benefactor, and I have to thank you for leaving some incense for my Liu family. I was shocked. The lady suddenly let go. It seemed as if the loss of composure just now had not happened, and she leaned back in her chair. Still the aloof and untouchable lady of the Marquisate. If that's the case, how can I fail to repay your kindness? She sneered and sentenced me to death once again. This girl is talking nonsense and slandering my son's reputation. How can Jinghong Courtyard tolerate such a dirty-minded thing? Madam Zhou, drag her away and give her 20 strokes of the cane, then throw her out of the house. I am dead. Again. This time I didn't even live to be dragged off to the mass grave. Those 20 strokes of the cane almost killed me. Nanny Zhou was watching over me personally, and she emphasized that all 20 strokes of the board should be directed at my stomach, and each one must be hit firmly. When I woke up again, my body was still shaking uncontrollably. The pain that spread from the outside to the inside and into my bone marrow still seemed to be surging in my lower abdomen. The strong smell of blood still lingered in my nose, and the blood spreading from my lower body stung my eyes. Vomit. I bent over and retched in unbearable pain. The jade-topped golden bean stood quietly on the bird stand, looking at me with its head tilted. Regardless of whether I am pregnant or not, this child cannot be accepted by the Marquis mansion, because the young master has not yet married. This child is not a blessing but a curse. Green Ivy screamed and ran over to support me. What's wrong? Sister, are you feeling unwell? She seemed to remember something and covered her mouth. Could it be that you? Sister. I held on to the green radish tightly. Can't say. Whether there is or not. There must be no. I have to find another way out. However, the time left for me is still too little. Before I could say anything, Nanny Zhou's voice came in from the door again. Once again, I knelt in a row with green radish. But this time there is the variable of green radish, and there is one more way for me to die. Oh no. Not really. This time I was beaten to death with 20 boards. But the green ivy also died with me. In order to save her life, she pushed my belly out impatiently before my wife could speak. Then the lady promptly gave her 20 strokes of the cane. I can't keep the evil offspring in my belly. Knowing that I was pregnant with an evil child, I naturally couldn't let the green ivy stay. The 20 blows were so hard that flesh was felt and blood was drawn on each blow. The green radish couldn't even get through 10 boards. I stood in front of the bird again, holding the food box in my hand, ready to add bird food to it. I don't know if it's because I'm used to dying so many times, but my reaction this time was actually a lot milder. I glanced back quietly. The green ivy is still wiping the flower stand behind me. It seems that I am the only one who is bouncing back and forth between life and death endlessly. How lucky the green radish is. How lonely I am. I have to find another way out. I can neither tell Madam about my menstrual period nor make her change her mind. Maybe I shouldn't go directly to the Madam and ask for help, but should interrupt Madame Zhou's words. It was obvious that she should have known about the relationship between the young master and me long ago. But she waited until the lady sentenced the 4 of us before she chose to report it. Given Madame Zhou's loyalty to her, this shouldn't happen, unless there is someone among the 4 of us that Nanny Zhou wants to protect. It's the sound of clouds. It can only be the sound of clouds. I remember that day when I went to bring hangover tea to the young master. She and Nanny Zhou whispered something behind others' backs. The distance was quite far, and I only heard a few sporadic words. Don't go. Now is not the right time. Master, it's too much. I will ask. You have to seize the opportunity. At that time, I didn't think about the deeper meaning of their conversation. It was not until I entered the young master's room and was pressed hard on the couch by him that I vaguely understood the key. Lu Xinghe's slender fingers tightened around my neck, choking out all my cries for mercy. He pulled my belt off roughly and tore my skirt into pieces. I always remember his bloodshot eyes due to drunkenness and his malicious threats in my ears. What are you yelling about? Are you calling someone to see you like this? Isn't this what you asked for? If you serve me well, I might even ask my mother for your permission to be my concubine. Don't forget, your indenture is a death indenture in our house. If you cry again, I will be unhappy. I will call a trafficker to sell you to Yunlfang. Look at what a slut you are now. Everyone knows that it was you who broke the rules and came to seduce the young master in broad daylight. It's you who is shameless. I am just a slave in this mansion who was sold out by my family and signed a death contract. Being assigned to the young master's courtyard is a great fortune. Being accepted by the young master is a blessing I earned in my previous life. Whether I am willing or not is not important. Lu Xinghe got drunk that day and lay drunk in the study for the entire afternoon. The entire Jinghong courtyard knew that Qingping, the maidservant beside the young master, was shameless and had soiled the young master's bed that day. That night, Lu Xinghe exempted me from the night shift. That was probably the last bit of his tenderness, used to compensate for the innocence that I was unwilling to lose. Yun Xiang brought me a bottle of medicinal wine. Actually, I'm not sure if it was her. After all, when I returned to my room, the white porcelain bottle was placed next to my pillow, as if silently demonstrating to me, I know everything about your shameless behavior. In fact, it was supposed to be Yun Xiang's class that day. However, when she was about to deliver the soup, Nanny Zhou stopped her on the pretext that her mistress was looking for someone to answer. Who can't tolerate what? The madam couldn't tolerate the fact that a maid shamelessly seduced the young master before he even got married. What did Nanny Zhou go to ask for? Go and ask the madam to grant Yun Xiang the title of concubine after the young master gets married, in consideration of her honesty and integrity. As for me, she is just a bitch who wants to seduce the young master. When the young master gets tired of her, he will send her away so that she will not affect his reputation outside. That's why, after madam decided that the four of us would be buried with her, Nanny Zhou chose to push me out to take the blame. I don't have much time left. I cried out loudly before the lady could punish the four of us. Master, your kindness to me is as great as a mountain. Even if I were to be torn to pieces, I would not be able to repay you for your kindness. I beg madam to grant me a favor and allow me to watch over the young master's body. I am willing to follow the young master and will never live in vain. There was dead silence overhead. Maybe I cried too sincerely, and the sobbing around me seemed to be drowned out by my crying. After a while, the lady hummed softly. You are a loyal girl. Okay. Because of my interruption, the lady finally didn't mention the issue of whether to be buried with him or not. The four of us have managed to save our lives for the time being. The four of us were sent by the madam to keep watch for Lu Xinghe. This was the grace that Nanny Zhou asked for on our behalf. No one thought I would run. My indenture is in the Marquis's mansion. I ran away. I am a fugitive slave and an illegal resident. If I stay, at least I can die with a clean record as a concubine. That's a blessing. Yun Xiang didn't know where Nanny Zhou had called him to, and Qing Luo took the opportunity to hide away for some time. The monk who was chanting the sutras was tired and was asked by the lady to go out for lunch. I was the only one left in the entire morning hall, adding incense oil to the eternal lamp beside Lu Xinghe's coffin. Keeping your hands steady. Insert the long wooden spoon deep into the small bucket of sesame oil. Scoop out a spoonful, not more or less. Then raise it to a suitable height and tilt the spoon. The clear lamp oil falls into the lamp tray. The dim light came on again. The man who took away my innocence, broke my wings, and tormented me every night is now lying quietly in the coffin beside me. I hate him, but he is my last chance now. The funeral lasts only 7 days. As per my promise, I will die next to Lu Xinghe's coffin when it is opened, and accompany him on the road. I only have 6 days left. I have to find a way to survive in these 6 days. Or maybe the child in my belly that I absolutely don't want to see is still my hope. I just need to find the right way to use it. My hand subconsciously touched my lower abdomen. It was such an amazing feeling. I clearly had no evidence, but I had a strong intuition telling me otherwise. Right here, inside my body, there is another piece of flesh and blood that is breathing, growing, and absorbing my vitality. If the lady cannot accept that the young master has a child before getting married, what about the master? The lady has been married to the master for many years, and they have only this one son. Now that Lu Xinghe has passed away suddenly, and there is no successor to the Marquis Mansion, how can they protect this huge Marquis Mansion and this prestigious title from falling into the hands of side branches? They must need a child who is not adopted from a side branch, but is of their direct bloodline and one they can have full control over. Nails pierced into the palm. I turned and looked at the dark doorway. The pale lanterns emitted a dim light. I need to talk to my wife. Thanks to the loyal servant hat I have on my head now. The maid beside the lady led me directly into the inner room. Even though I have endured 5 years in the Marquis Mansion, working my way up from a servant girl in the outer courtyard to the young master's bed, this is a place I have never set foot in. The lady looked very tired. She didn't even open her eyes when I knelt down. She just lay on the chaise longue and let Yin Ping beside her rub her forehead. You said you had something important to tell me, so go ahead. I hesitated to speak, and quietly looked up at the jade bottle. The latter understood what he meant and increased the strength in his hands. The lady finally opened her eyes. Oh. She raised an eyebrow. Everyone used to say that the servants around Xinghe were restless. I just thought that the maids were jealous and deliberately spread gossip. Now it seems that there is some truth to the rumors. My forehead hit the cold floor tiles with a loud thud. This was also one of the compulsory courses when I was sold in. How to kowtow so that your masters will think you are loyal but not think you are disrespectful, and at the same time avoid getting your head broken and bleeding. It's not that the Marquis' mansion is very considerate to the servants. It's just that the wound on his face is too conspicuous, and if it gets out, it will be detrimental to the family's reputation for kindness. The lady waved her hand and asked Yin Ping to go out. My patience is limited. You'd better keep it simple. My fingers clenched the coarse white silk tightly. Madam Rongbing. This servant. I bit my lower lip with my teeth, and every word revealed the unbearable things that I didn't want to mention or recall. This servant belongs to the young master. The lady was not overly surprised. She didn't even bother to say, to me, and just waited for me to continue. Every move of Lu Xinghe seemed to be endlessly replayed and magnified in his memory. It made me feel extremely sick, but I have to say, only by surviving can I have a future. Master, you have mercy on me. I am willing to die for you. However, I have noticed that my period has come. I am afraid that I am pregnant with your child. The lady seemed to smile. Why? Are you still thinking about the position of concubine? Do you think that since you gave birth to a child for my son, it is natural for you to stay in the Marquis Mansion and live the life of a young lady? She seemed to be sighing. I knew you were restless, with a foxy look on your face. It's really disgusting. I knocked my head heavily, and the ground was immediately stained with dark red blood. How dare I, a lowly servant, think of anything else? I am only thinking about you. Madam, the young master is gone, and his reputation is more important. How can I tarnish his reputation? But Madam has been married to the old master for many years, and she only has one son, the young master. I am just worried about Madam's future. The lady sat up straighter, and her voice finally stopped sounding as contemptuous as before. Go on. I calmed myself down. I really want to follow the young master, but I can't bear to leave the young master's flesh and blood in my belly. I am also worried about the lady and the master. If the lady... I raised my head and for the first time made eye contact with the highest-ranking lady in the mansion. If my lady is merciful and allows me to give birth to a child, I will never live in vain. This child will not know that there is such a person as me in this world. He will be the old child of the madam and the master, and will inherit the incense of the Marquis. I think the spirit of the master in heaven will also be at peace. I just need these few months of respite so that I will have enough strength to escape from the mansion. As for the rest, it's all nonsense. The lady needs a child and I have one. She will definitely not reject my loyalty. The lady looked at me. That was the first time in such a long time that I saw a person in her eyes. Not a vixen, not a tool, not a beast of burden, but he is a person with his own deviant and terrible ideas. After a while, a smile crept onto the lady's lips. The wife of the Marquis, who had always been dignified and reserved, laughed wildly for the first time. You are such an interesting girl. She wiped the tears from her eyes with a handkerchief. No wonder my son had to pick you out of that group of girls. You are indeed extraordinary. You dare to say such things. My heart is beating like a drum. The lady slowly leaned over and pinched my chin with her fingers again. But you are right about one thing. The nails painted with impatience are as red as blood. Do you know why the master and I have been married for so long and yet we only have one son? Lu Xinghe. She slowly tightened her fingers and the smile on her face disappeared completely. Do you know why there are so many concubines in the master's room? But none of them are pregnant. My breath caught in my throat. If a woman doesn't have children, it can be said that it's the woman's problem. A group of women have no children. There is a problem. It can only be that man. But if the Marquis can't do it, how did Lu Xinghe come? The lady's eyes were sharp. You are right. The Marquis and I do need a child. The nails pierced into the flesh, and blood beads flowed down the nails that were stained red with the juice of the impatience flower. But do you know why I don't want to educate Lu Xinghe at all? Do you know why the Marquis is so permissive towards Lu Xinghe? You are so smart. Guess what? With so many children from the side branches and so many abandoned babies in the charity, will the Marquis and I be short of this evil offspring in your belly? She suddenly let go, and the sudden release of force made me fall back to the ground. Mother Zhou. The lady's voice was shrill. Nanny Zhou and the maids came in one after another. But at that moment, the lady returned to her arrogant appearance as a Marquise lady. She slowly wiped the remaining blood off her hands with a handkerchief before casually sentencing me to death again. This girl is so unruly, seducing the young master, and talking nonsense. So I will help her. You can gag her and take her out. Or find a trafficker to sell her for a few taels of silver. Or just give her to your servants as a reward. In any case, such an unclean girl must not be allowed to dirty the gate of my mansion. I think that was the ugliest death I've ever had. Thanks to the madam, I finally understood what a vixen I was in the eyes of the servants in the mansion. I lost count of how many people climbed on top of me. Every inch of my body no longer belongs to me and I am at the mercy of others. There seemed to be no end to the man's moans and obscene language. Is this the girl from the young master's inner courtyard? No wonder she was able to climb onto the young master's bed. It's really soft and white. Hurry up. This woman looks like she's about to die. I'm still waiting. There's nothing wrong with that. Look. She's feeling comfortable. Different faces gradually blurred in front of my eyes. The creaking of the bed made me feel as if I didn't know where I was. In a trance. I seemed to see Lu Xinghe again. I went out of the Marquis mansion with him once. That was the third day after I seduced him. He specifically asked me to help him with his grooming and bathing. I cried so hard that day that I even kicked over the bathtub he was bathing in while struggling. But that wouldn't stop me from doing anything except adding more bruises to my body. Lu Xinghe was just like these people, lying on top of me and ravaging me to his heart's content. Behind me was the rough ground and a pool of ice-cold bath water. The skin was scratched and cold water seeped into the wound. The stinging sensation gradually dulled and finally became numb. Perhaps noticing my reluctance to cooperate, Lu Xinghe grabbed my hair and slammed my head hard against the corner of the table. You'd better be obedient, or I'm going to lose my patience. The way he looked at me was like a beast looking at a rabbit that had no ability to protect itself. It could obviously be eaten in one bite, but it still wanted the rabbit to expose its neck on its own. After it was done, I gathered my torn clothes and knelt on the ground to clean up the mess I had made. Suddenly a piece of men's clothing covered my head. Come on, I'll take you to a nice place. His tone was very relaxed, as if the one who had tormented me before was just another personality hidden in his body. Then he took me to a squid shop. That was my first and only time out of the house. The cobblestone road is intricate, like a huge spider web. The doors of the low houses on the roadside are open, like the spider's huge mouth opened when it sees the flying insects. We are all just little flies caught in a web. No matter how hard you struggle, you cannot escape the cage of fate. He led me into an alley and kicked open a door at random. The woman sitting inside was like a frightened bird in the forest that was suddenly stared at by a raptor. She jumped up subconsciously and then raised a flattering and vulgar smile. Young master, I'm a stranger. Why don't you come over and take a look? Lu Xinghe ignored her and led me straight to open the curtain leading to the inner room. White and dark bodies intertwined, and foul air blew in my face. If you don't obey, you'll be the one lying here. Lu Xinghe held me in his arms and bit my earlobe with his teeth. His fingers were nimble and in no time he unbuttoned my shirt and reached underneath. Be good, and if you are happy to serve me, I will give you a title. The carriage on the return journey was on an uneven bluestone road. The bumps from the road and the ruts were undoubtedly a different kind of excitement for Lu Xinghe. He tormented me mercilessly. But just when I couldn't help but scream, he fiercely blocked my lips and tongue, forcing me to whimper, which drove him even more crazy. When I got off the car again, even though I tried my best to adjust myself, my messy hair and skirt were still revealing that I was trying to hide something. The coachman carried Lu Xinghe on his back and looked at me with sticky and malicious eyes, just like now. But at that time, I was still Lu Xinghe's most beloved girl, so they didn't dare. Now that Lu Xinghe is dead, the madam has treated me like a disposable toy. Naturally, they no longer need to hide their malice, and all of it has turned into madness that they vent on me. I once again returned to the day when the news of Lu Xinghe's death came. Compared to the previous time when I couldn't survive a day, this time I at least got some secrets that I had never been able to access before. For example, Lu Xinghe is not actually the Marquis' biological son, which is a shocking piece of news that would be extremely explosive no matter what era it is in. At that moment, I finally figured out a lot of things. Why is it that Lu Xinghe, the only child in the Marquis' mansion, is only doted on by the Marquis' wife but not educated? Why is it that Lu Xinghe, as the only heir of the Marquis, lets his future go on its own, and even has the intention of leading him down the path of a playboy? Or it can be said that Lu Xinghe's death was most likely caused by the tacit approval and connivance of the Marquis and his wife, whose child is Lu Xinghe, that even the high and mighty young Ping Ho has to acknowledge this blood relative with all his might. For the wife of a Marquis from an aristocratic family to have to endure such a great humiliation. I held the food box and put my hand on my belly again. This is not a bad karma. It is clearly a death warrant. If she wanted to survive, she had to keep the child a secret. This time, I didn't choose to go to the morning hall to keep vigil. There, I couldn't get any useful information except being stared at by more malicious eyes. I bought myself a temporary respite by keeping vigil over the young master's body and accompanying him to show my loyalty. And I also asked the lady for the grace to sort out the young master's belongings. The madam didn't say anything, but Nanny Zhou took the initiative to ask Yin Xiang to come and help, saying that she was afraid that I couldn't take care of the baby by myself. I know what she means. He was afraid that I had dirty hands and would hide my secrets during the chaos. But my goal has never been the gold and silver jewelry in the young master's room. For me now, the most important thing is to collect as much information as possible outside the Marquis mansion. Otherwise, I have no doubt that, given the hostility this world has towards fugitive slaves and women, as soon as I dare to step out of the gate of the Marquis mansion, some scoundrel will target me. The best luck is to kill and rob. If you are unlucky, you will be kidnapped and locked up at home, and then sold to a brothel after you have had enough fun with them. Even if I long for an independent and free life, in this world, I must first find someone I can rely on. Man. Oh, how ridiculous. After finally waiting for the man I hated so much to die, what I racked my brains to do was to find myself a new partner by every possible means. In the face of absolute strength, character and pride will be trampled into the mud. It's not my thing, but even so, I'm going to give it a try. The man who destroyed my innocence and broke my wings is dead, but I want to crawl out of the quagmire and live with dignity for everyone to see. Yun Xiang and Jin Cheng had a huge argument over whether the gold leaves in the young master's box were worth 2 cents per piece or 1 cent per piece. I said a few words in a mild manner and retreated to the next room to clean up Lu Xinghe's study. I didn't like it here before. Lu Xinghe doesn't like reading, but he likes to ask me to stay in the study, especially after he found out that I could read. He dragged me to the study more and more often. Qingqing has beautiful hands. I didn't expect her handwriting is so beautiful too. Qingqing, you said your family was so poor that they had to sell their daughter. Who taught you to read and write? Qingqing, who taught you these ideas? I remember it was one of those ordinary afternoons, or mornings, or evenings. Lu Xinghe let me sit on his lap. He hugged me from behind, trapping me between him and the table, making me unable to move. I had to copy the teacher's homework for him and endure his unlimited demands. He wouldn't allow me to copy a single word incorrectly, so he came up with many ways to punish me. He pushed my shirt up high, and his hot and wet lips and tongue roamed and nibbled my back, bringing about wave after wave of numbness. Qingqing, copy carefully. If you make a mistake in one word, you won't be able to sleep tonight. His hands were placed on my chest, and he squeezed them hard from time to time to remind me not to be distracted. If my mother asks me the next day why I didn't sleep well, you must give her a good answer. My chest was rubbed red by the edge of the desk, and the increasingly fast pace made it almost impossible for me to hold the pen in my hand. Lu Xinghe's breathing became heavier. You are such a goblin. His hands slowly slid down, pinched my waist, and pushed me down hard. I bit my knuckles with my backhand and swallowed back the cry that was about to burst out of my lips. But tears still welled up in my eyelashes because of the pain. Lu Xinghe finally stopped. He pressed himself so tightly against me that I could even feel the slight trembling he couldn't control as he moaned. In the mess, a book that did not belong to Lu Xinghe fell to the ground. I opened the title page and saw a name I had never seen before. Zhou Yueshan. I once tried to ask Lu Xinghe who he was. In return, Lu Xinghe suffered a whole night of torture. My Qingqing is getting more and more naughty and has started to think about other men. He made me kneel beside the bed and hold the paint for him. The cold silver needle dipped in paint stabbed into my bare shoulder. Lu Xinghe blew warm air into my ears with a teasing voice. Qingqing, don't move. It won't look good if the tattoo is crooked. I couldn't control my shaking, but he pinned me to the ground. The pointed needles densely covered my shoulders, leaving scarlet outlines. He even stuffed a handkerchief into my mouth. Qingqing, be good and don't scream. His voice was still gentle, but his hands did not slacken their strength at all. He even pinched the needle tip and stirred it a few times when the silver needle pierced into the flesh. Remember clearly whose servant you are, whose man you belong to. Think about what you should ask and what you shouldn't say in the future before you speak. He came up to me and pushed me down on the couch. I was drenched in cold sweat, fainted, and was pinched awake by him. But he finally relented. That old-fashioned guy loves hibiscus flowers the most. Since you asked him, I'll give you one too. Do you think I'm being nice to you? Although Lu Xinghe may not be good at other things, he has a natural talent for painting, and the hibiscus he painted is lifelike. Every stroke is stained with my blood. But I could only thank you with a hoarse voice. Thank you for the reward, master. Lu Xinghe finally let me go. He just muttered a little while I was holding water and helping him wash up. It's strange to say, he has always looked down on us, the children of noble families. Why is he suddenly so kind to me this time and even said a bunch of nonsense about how he misjudged me in the past? My mind moved. The book Zhou Yueshan gave to Lu Xinghe was Zhuangzi. Lu Xinghe has never been fond of reading, and the things in the study are just there for perfunctory reading. There is little discussion on the theory of Huang Lao in the school, so he is naturally too lazy to read them. But one day when I was transcribing an article for him, I couldn't help myself and added a sentence from Xiao Yao Yu to the homework he handed in. I thought, if no one in the mansion could help me, then Zhou Yueshan might be another option for me. From Lu Xinghe's scattered descriptions, Zhou Yueshan should be a rare gentleman in their imperial academy. It's just that he is too upright. So he looks down on those playboys who have squeezed in by relying on their family background. I searched through all of Lu Xinghe's books, and finally found the copy of Zhuangzi, printed with Zhou Yueshan's private print in a box in the corner. The death of the Marquis's eldest son was a major event. The fact that Zhou Yueshan was able to enter the Imperial College itself showed that his status was extraordinary. He was also Lu Xinghe's classmate, so it was reasonable for him to come and pay his respects. This book, Zhuangzi, is my stepping stone. There are still many issues that I need to figure out. When will he come? How many people will come with him? Do I have a chance to catch him alone? And what methods can I use to persuade him to help me? The most important thing is that I have no idea what he looks like. I died many times. He was given away by the lady twice, sold 4 times, punished 3 times, and was fed a bowl of poison. I was even a little dazed at the end. Am I in a cycle of reincarnation? Or is this all just an extremely real dream I had? The flame of the eternal lamp in front of me flickered, and the sandalwood scent lingered at the tip of my nose. For the first time, I was moved and reached out to uncover the brocade covering Lu Xinghe's face. The man who had tortured me for countless days and nights lay quietly in front of me for the first time. I suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of absurdity. Although Lu Xinghe enjoyed tormenting me, there was one thing he did not lie to me about. In this world, identity is an insurmountable chasm. I am an orphan bought from a human trafficker. I have no family or relatives. no master to protect me, and no identity certificate. For him, the outside of the Marquis's mansion is as vast as the sky and the sea. But for me, it is a den of wolves and tigers. Without him, any random person could tear me apart and eat me. However, in order to find out who Zhou Yuashan is and what he looks like, I don't know how many times I have stolen Lu Xinghe's private belongings and how many times I have been deceived and humiliated by people. I'm not willing to accept this, but there is no other way. Here, it's a reward from my wife. Green Radish brought me a bowl of red bean soup and threw it in front of me in annoyance. This is not the first time she has thrown the bowl of red bean soup at me. Fox spirit. Among the 4 grown-up maids, the lady was the only one who gave me a midnight snack. She spat at me, and not feeling satisfied, she pushed me again. You seduced the young master when he was alive, and now you have brought him down. You are such a jinx. I don't know why the lady thinks highly of you. A lot of sugar is added to red bean soup to cover up the bitterness of arsenic. That really hurts. I fell to the ground, feeling my intestines twisted into a ball and then broken into pieces. Green Radish was surprised at first, but then she reacted, quickly closed the door, and came over to hold me down. I wanted to beg Luo not to press me, but instead of letting go, she picked up the cushion I had been kneeling on and covered my mouth and nose with it. What did she say? Anyway, you've already said you'll go with the young master, so we don't have to accompany you anymore. It's better to leave early. The young master is waiting for you. Oh, how straightforward, efficient, and ruthless. I looked at the Green Radish. Humans are really strange animals. It was Lu Xinghe who forced me, and it was the madam who was biased towards me on purpose. But she only hated me. I'm really curious. If she knew what was added to this bowl of red bean soup, would she still be so resentful towards me? Maybe it was because my eyes were too strange. Green Radish took half a step back, looking a bit timid. Why are you standing there in a daze? Madam said this is for you. Drink it quickly so I can give you something in return. A crazy idea sprouted in my head and then grew desperately. Green Radish's last words kept circling in my mind. If you die, we won't have to die. What if it wasn't me who died? I gave her a smile. I'm not hungry, but I noticed that you didn't have a good appetite this afternoon. You didn't eat much for dinner, so I guess you're hungry now. I was the last one to arrive in the young master's room, so it's not my turn to receive the madam's reward. I pressed the bowl into her hands courteously. Madam just felt sorry for me and gave me some food. In terms of qualifications, I don't deserve such a favor. But Madam is not watching, and I can't say anything. We are sisters by fate, so please drink it for me. My hands and feet were cold, but my mind was unusually clear. Just drag it out for tonight. Zhou Yuashan will come to the Marquis mansion tomorrow. I have already checked the road, tried to see who would pass by, timed it well, and prepared what I would say to him. He is just a runaway slave. If he cannot find my mansion, we will not make a big fuss. I have sacrificed so much for this moment. The experience of death going in circles is hitting my bottom line step by step. No matter how I die, I don't want to try it again. Green Ivy looked at me suspiciously and subconsciously declined. This is a gift from the madam. When the gift was passed in, she specifically told me that it was for Miss Qingping. She pronounced my name with extra emphasis, but did not hand the bowl back to her. All the blood rushed up wildly at that moment. The morning hall was so quiet that I could even hear my own heartbeat. Plop, plop, I still have a chance. I can take the bowl back before Green Radish drinks it. No matter how many deaths I've experienced before, I've never taken the initiative to have blood on my hands. Whether she goes too far or not is her business. Once I take action, everything that I have been insisting on, refusing to compromise on, and pursuing for so long will collapse from then on. If this is the case, how can I prove that I am different from everyone else in this world? At that moment, I suddenly understood one thing. Civil officials died for remonstration, while military officials died in battle. Why are there so many people who died to express their will in history books? Even ants are greedy for life just to stick to ridiculous principles. Why should they sacrifice their own lives? And now, I have become that kind of person. But I don't have the ability to risk my life to leave a mark in history books like them. Green Ivy looked at me, but her eyes were glancing at the bowl of soup. I understood her. It was more than just a bowl of soup. It represents the grace and recognition from those in power. It is the foundation of our existence in this world and the resource we fight madly for. It is our life and also our poison. Sister, you're joking. I laughed dryly and tried to find excuses for her. In 2 days, no matter if I regret it or not, I will go to accompany the young master. No matter how good the gift from the madam is, it will be a waste for me. We have finally had a good time. Sister, please drink it for me. If you are lucky enough to serve the madam in the future, it will be my way of repaying the madam's kindness. This is a world that eats people. If I don't eat people, I will be eaten by others. Green Ivy was convinced by me, and she rarely smiled at me and picked up the bowl of soup. I gave her the cushion to sit on and closed the door of the morning hall for her, just like she did to me that time. Don't worry, sister. Drink slowly. Logically speaking, there should be no one missing in the morning hall. Monks and Taoists have to perform rituals here day and night. Maids and servants have to serve here. And someone has to watch over the lights, candles, and paper-made items. But why am I the only one here at night? Before, I was so focused on finding out the news outside that I didn't notice this omission that shouldn't have existed. The only explanation is that my wife never believed the nonsense that I would hit my coffin, and she was planning to kill me from the beginning. The arsenic began to take effect. The bowl in Lualua's hand fell to the ground. She rolled on the ground, holding her stomach, looking at me with a ferocious face, and screaming at me to ask the lady to call a doctor for her. My knuckles turned blue from gripping the bolt. No one will come, no matter how loud the noise in the morning hall tonight. People outside are deaf, because someone has already decided my life or death. The Green Ivy struggled for most of the night. Large pools of blood gushed out of her mouth and nose, and her long and slender nails were broken by the ground. In the end, she could no longer make any sound. Blood clots blocked her throat and flowed into her lungs. Thin lines of blood flowed from her ears and eyes, dripping down her blue face to the ground. She looked at me, her eyes full of uncertainty. She couldn't understand why the lady would send me a bowl of poison when my apparent status was so glorious. For the first time, I saw my own death in someone else. I leaned my back against the door and pulled myself up several times. I don't have much time left. In another hour, the little girl on shift should come in. Accidentally, she would see how I died, and then tell everyone in the house. The righteous girl Qingping, who was by the young master's side, committed suicide by taking poison while keeping vigil for the young master, and went to accompany the young master. I took off Green Radish's clothes, picked up the food box and walked out. The woman guarding the door even greeted me. Miss Lulua, you have worked hard. You have to reply to the lady so late at night. I responded vaguely. If Green Rose was unable to reply at night because the lady fell asleep, then the news that a maid was buried alive with the young master should have reached the lady's ears early in the morning when the little maid was on duty. Madam is busy dealing with the news of Lualua's death and taking care of the comings and goings of a large family, so she won't notice my absence for a while. Even if it is discovered, it takes time to find the person, search the house, pass the message, and keep the news secret. Thanks to the restrictions placed on women in this world, news from the outer courtyard always has to wait for it to reach the inner courtyard. Conversely, news from the inner courtyard would always be slower to leak out. Zhou Yuishan will come to the Marquis Mansion in the morning, and with him will be 2 other students from the Imperial Academy. The lady's nephew from her mother's family will serve as the guest host. I only have one chance. Zhou Yuishan would stay for a while after burning incense. During this time, the 2 students who came with him would greet and socialize with other guests. He would just be going to wash his hands. The first step I have to take is to send away the nephew from my wife's family who is leading him. Once I even waited on the small path next to the bathroom, just waiting for Zhou Yuishan to come out and see me. However, I didn't get to wait for Zhou Yuishan, as a pair of hands covered my mouth from behind. The lady's nephew dragged me directly to an empty room on the side. How did you get to the outer courtyard? He grabbed a passing servant and asked him to lead Zhou Yuishan, then turned around and closed the door. I know you. You must be the girl that cousin Lu likes the most. He looked me up and down as if he were looking at a piece of clean meat that had been placed on the chopping board. My cousin mentioned you, saying that you. He didn't say anything else, knowing full well that it wouldn't be anything good. What are you doing here? The man's shadow loomed over me and he pinned me against the wall. Think about it. If your aunt knew that your cousin's maid ran out in broad daylight to meet a man, what would she do to you? His hands reached into my clothes, just like those men had done to me countless times before when I died. Be good and don't shout. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I can set you up with someone so you can meet your lover. He pressed me down on the couch, and I heard the respectful voice of the servant outside. Mr. Joe, please come this way. My master Shen is busy and can't leave, so I've asked you to wait here and show you the way. The man untied my skirt, tied my hands behind my back with my belt, and stuffed my mouth with my handkerchief. All this talk of matchmaking and good mood is just a lie. He just wanted me to stop resisting so he could have more fun. He knows it, and I know it too. That time, I didn't end up meeting Zhou Wuxian. He sent me directly to the lady. The reason was that he found me sneaking around in the outer courtyard, and he was afraid that I might have stolen something. So he suggested that my aunt investigate thoroughly. When dragging me into the inner courtyard, he even squatted down to tidy up my messy skirt and straighten my hair that was stuck to my ears. He pressed his fingers hard on my lips and twisted them hard. Hush. Think about how you're going to respond to my aunt later. After I think it over, maybe I'll ask my aunt to give you to me as a reward. His eyes lingered on me unscrupulously, and he was not afraid at all that I would scream out. That's right. Not to mention that I was just punished by the family for stealing something, and was beaten with a stick. The punishment could be light or heavy, but it wouldn't lead to my death. If I say so, it means I am tempting a man to be unruly, and what awaits me is drowning in a pond. He stood next to the lady as I was dragged out, mouthing words silently at me. He is saying, "That's good." So disgusting. The first time the board hit my body, I could hardly even tell what was happening. Are the people who did this to me disgusting? Or am I disgusting myself for being defiled over and over again? When he came back again, Zhou Yuxian walked over with his wife's nephew, just as he remembered. I took the first step to stop the two of them. Mr. Shen-san. I saluted him gently. Madam ordered me to come to see the third master. She has something to ask. Since he couldn't contact Zhou Yuxian behind his back, he might as well call him away in person. I don't believe that he can be so unscrupulous in front of outsiders. Aunt called me. Without looking up, I could imagine the confused expressions of the two people in front of me. That's right. Even if the lady wanted to pass on a message, the maidservant beside her should go to the second gate and tell the servants outside, and then they would come to find the person. Since when will the maids in the inner courtyard be able to show their faces outside without following the rules? Master San, please go quickly. Madam is calling you anxiously. I don't know what happened. I moved sideways to make way. It's a mess at the gate, and no one is there. I have been searching for the way for a long time, but luckily we are not in the front yet. I have pointed the way to this gentleman, and I have to go back to work. After a while, another voice came to my rescue. Brother Shen, please go and do your work. I will find my way back. This was the first time I heard Zhou Yuxian's voice, just like what Lu Xinghe told me. He is gentle, polite, and old-fashioned, making people feel unapproachable. I watched my wife's nephew turn a corner, and estimated that he had gone far away. Then I finally straightened up and secretly turned my head to glance at Zhou Wuxian. With just that one glance, I was caught by a pair of dark eyes. He didn't find his way back as he said he would. He just stood there looking at me. How can I describe the look in his eyes? It is exploration, but more of waiting. He said to me silently, "Don't try to play tricks on me. Don't try to deceive me. I know everything." I knelt down almost subconsciously and took out the copy of Zhuangzi, which had already become one with my body temperature, from my arms. Master Rongbing, I am a maid in your study. I am here to look for you because you have been told that this book was borrowed by you and must be returned to its original owner no matter what. Master has been very kind to me. I dare not forget your instructions. I can only risk my life to come out and look for you. Zhou Yuxian seemed to want to say something, but the hurried footsteps interrupted him. Nanny Zhou and a group of maids rushed towards me. What a dirty girl. You've embarrassed yourself in public. She didn't even give me time to react or argue. She just ordered someone to cover my mouth and then saluted Zhou Wuxian. The mansion neglected to discipline the girl, and she was ignorant and offended you. Please forgive me. While Madame Zhou ordered someone to drag me back, she pushed a servant out. You lead the way, young master. At that moment, a huge sense of unwillingness suddenly surrounded me. I have come this far. Why am I still failing? Why did they come so quickly? There is only one step left. If I had been given a little more time, if I had said a few more words to Zhou Yuushan, and made up a reason to ask him to save me that was in line with people's psychology in this era, I would have succeeded. Why can't you give me even this little chance? I burst out with the last of my strength, pushed away the maid who was holding my arm, pushed through the crowd, rushed in front of Zhou Yuushan, and grabbed his sleeve tightly. I have so much to do. I want to dig the towel out of my mouth. I ask him to save me. And I want to return to him the book that contains my views on Zhuangzi. But Nanny Zhou reacted much faster than I expected. She grabbed my hair to stop me from taking the next step. In the chaos, the copy of Zhuangzi fell to the ground, and I only had time to pull off a piece of Zhou Yuushan's sleeve. I still can't do anything, except for an endless cycle of death over and over again. The pain and dizziness of losing consciousness came again. What was different from the past was that this time when I woke up, I had something extra in my hand. A sleeve. The sleeves are sky blue with dark flowing cloud patterns. I tore it off Zhou Yuushan's sleeve when I was dragged away by Nanny Zhou. My breathing almost stopped. This has never happened before. No matter how I died before, everything would not be repeated with me. Is this God telling me that maybe this time, someone can finally help me? Maybe because Green Ivy saw that I hadn't moved for a long time. She turned around and called me. I almost knocked over the lunchbox in my hand, even though I was mentally prepared. The shock of seeing the person who had died in my hands before standing in front of me alive again was extremely great. Madame and Nanny Zhou walked into Jinghong courtyard again. Everything started to turn again, just like the gears in a machine that had been running for countless rounds. I got the chance to sort out the young master's belongings, found the book, Zhuangzi, and once again gave the grace of eating arsenic to Green Ivy in the morning hall. The only difference is that I can't show my face in front of my wife's nephew. I thought about it over and over again, and the reason why Nanny Zhou was able to find me so quickly must be that the madam's nephew met her when he entered the inner courtyard. So she was able to bring people to quickly find my location in the outer courtyard. Otherwise, in such a huge mansion, and I have avoided all inspections, it is impossible for anyone to know where I am so accurately. I got what I wanted and knelt in front of Zhou Yuushan again. I have learned my lesson this time. If I am going to do something, I will do it thoroughly. I trapped him directly in the bathroom. Thanks to the fact that the concept of master-servant hierarchy is deeply rooted in people's minds in this era, Zhou Yuushan has no habit of locking the door when going to the toilet. When I opened the door, his pants were half off. He was such a serious and calm person, but I could see a cracked expression on his face. You are so bold. Get out now. He was holding up his trousers and I was holding my book. He stared at me and I looked at the ground. In the end, Zhou Yuushan was defeated and turned his back to me to pull up his pants. Thank God. Compared to the people in the Marquis mansion, this man has some dignity. If you have shame, then I don't. I recited again without stuttering how the young master had done me a favor and how I would now fulfill his last wish to return the book even at the risk of my life. Thanks to the relative seclusion of the bathroom, I even had time to embellish and tell Zhou Yuushan a long story about Lu Xinghe's joy at being able to make friends with Zhou Yuushan. Zhou Yuushan's noble and elegant demeanor was completely destroyed by the toilet. What do you want to say? Say it now. I have no doubt that if I were not still a maid in the Marquis' mansion and it was not easy for outsiders to make direct decisions, he would have kicked me out by now. As long as I have concerns, I still have a chance. I moved my position by hugging Zhou Yuushan's thigh and blocked the door tightly. I want to ask for help. Sir. Zhou Yuushan was almost pushed by me to sit on the toilet. He took a deep breath and found a corner in the small bathroom where he wouldn't be bumped into by me. The Marquis mansion has always been tolerant and has never been known to mistreat servants. Servants must remember their duties and not criticize their masters. Well, that's a common, conventional refrain. He didn't want to have anything to do with me, and at the same time he was implicitly reminding me what to say and what not to say. Nanny Zhou's voice sounded outside unexpectedly. Everyone, be careful. If you see anyone, bring them back immediately. Go look over there again. Don't let that little bitch try to escape. He stole my lady's things and dared to run away. My lady said that if we encounter him outside the mansion, we can't afford to keep such a fugitive. We should just send him to the government and kill him. We don't need to bring him back. I didn't meet my lady's nephew this time, but Nanny Joe came so quickly. The lady's reaction was much quicker than I expected. I almost subconsciously took another step back. His back hit the shelf. The solid wood hit the wall, and the copper basin on top tilted with a loud noise. The talking outside stopped. I turned and looked at Zhou Yuushan. The bathroom was too small and could be seen at a glance. There was no place for me to hide. Even if he could ask to help me out now, could he still stay in there for another day? As soon as Zhou Yuushan leaves, Nanny Zhou will bring people to beat me to death again. I absolutely do not want to die again. I don't want to die in any way. At least in the Marquis Mansion. The result can be dealt with quickly. Once the Marquis Mansion sends me to the government, I might not be able to die even if I want to. My fingers touched the sleeve that had been stuffed in my sleeve. The one I tore off Zhou Yuushan last time. My mind went blank. I had no idea what I should do with that sleeve or what to say when I took it out. That is not something that should appear in my possession. Once discovered, I have no idea what the consequences will be. Zhou Yuushan looked at me thoughtfully. But I didn't have time to guess what he was thinking anymore. I didn't have the time. Nor did I want to. All I know is that I must succeed this time. My lord. As soon as I opened my mouth, the man opposite me suddenly moved. He covered my mouth with his hand, turned around, and took me to the corner where he was originally standing. The clear sandalwood scent from the man enveloped her. He seemed to smile at me. The smile was fleeting, but because I was so close to him, I could see it particularly clearly. Different from Lu Xinghe. Lu Xinghe was born with a good appearance. Even when he was serious, his peach blossom eyes were full of sparkle. He was born to be a good at deceiving young girls. Zhou Yuushan, however, has the most aloof temperament. When he doesn't smile, he is like a flower on the mountaintop. But once he relaxes the corners of his lips, he reveals a bit of romanticism and insolence like ice and snow melting away. Something cold was stuffed into my hand. Since you have the ability to come to the outer courtyard to find me, let me see if you have the ability to go to the outside of the Marquis Mansion and wait for me. His chin tapped my shoulder lightly, then let go. I have always heard that the Marquis Mansion is lenient and kind to me, but I didn't expect that the family management is so chaotic behind the scenes. I hid in the blind spot behind the door. When Zhou Yuushan opened the door, he deliberately turned sideways to block the gap so that Madame Zhou could see clearly that there was no one hiding in the room. A servant girl was able to sneak into the inner courtyard of the Marquis' wife's mansion, steal things, and then run outside to disturb the guests. She is really good at it. Nanny Zhou's voice dropped instantly. The lady's nephew came up in a few steps, ordered the servants to leave, and hurriedly apologized to Zhou Yuushan. The maids in the inner courtyard do not know the rules outside and disturbed the distinguished guests. Please forgive me, sir. Zhou Yuushan did not comment, and after a long while he snorted. Let's go. I have to serve you later. Please give my regards to the Marquis. I'm sorry I can't stay for long. My back was pressed against the carved lattice on the door, for fear of making the slightest sound. Solved. The person who could bully me at will was so humble that he wanted to kneel on the ground and lick the soles of Zhou Yuushan's shoes. The man who had killed me countless times didn't even have the qualifications to speak back in front of Zhou Yuushan. Countless deaths have taught me the deep malice of this world towards women, and today Zhou Yuushan taught me a new lesson. The malice in this world is not only directed at women, it presses down from top to bottom, layer by layer, targeting all those who are struggling at the bottom. Regardless of gender, we treat everyone equally. No one came to check if anyone was still in the room. At one point the yard was so quiet that I could even hear the rustling of leaves in the wind. What Zhou Yuushan stuffed into my hand was a pendant. The bluish-white jade was carved into the shape of a lion holding a ball. It felt warm to the touch and weighed heavily in the palm of my hand. He told me to meet him outside the mansion and gave me some proof of my identity. For the first time, I saw hope. There is a natural barrier from the inner courtyard to the outer courtyard, but not from the outer courtyard to the gate. The lady's hand could not reach outside, and the master did not know that I had run away. As long as my reasons are convincing enough, that's enough. The difficulty Zhou Yuushan posed to me was that he did not tell me his identity. Not knowing his identity means that even if I get the token, it will be useless if I know his name. But how could I not know? Not only do I know his identity, I also know the emblems on his carriage and horse. when and where his servants will park the carriage and wait for him, and how to avoid everyone's attention. The last piece of the puzzle is finally complete. I held the fan pendant and laughed heartily. What did the master say to me that time? Lord Zhongyi has never had much contact with my family. How come his child would think of speaking for the Marquis's mansion? Because of Xinghe's matter. The prince gave me something as a reward the other day. What exactly is the story behind that book, Shuangzi? Please tell me in detail. That was the longest time I lived. And it was also the first time I chose my own death. I asked Nanny Zhou for a bowl of abortion medicine. The master and the mistress had a big fight over the boy that was already forming in my belly. The master said that no matter who the baby comes from, it is considered the madam's child. As long as I am taken care of, the child will be the only legitimate son of the Marquis mansion. By doing this, the madam is really going to cut off the Marquis mansion and his own future. The lady rarely lost her temper and cursed the whole family of the Marquis mansion, saying that they were dirty from top to bottom. The master couldn't even give birth to a child, and the father-in-law was even more shameless. How did he get Lu Xinghe back then? The master had been willing to be a bastard all these years, and now he deserved it. He got the maid in the room pregnant before he even married his wife. The whole Marquis mansion was a joke. Nanny Zhou had already taken all the little maids out, but she left me out. That's right. In their eyes, I am already a dead man. So what's the harm in me hearing some unbearable news? I was lying on the bed in the inner room. My lower abdomen was churning and blood was pouring out in large clumps, soaking the cold mattress. Then it dripped down the side of the bed and gathered into a dark red mass on the ground. It hurts, but it's worth it, isn't it? The smell of blood spread between my lips and teeth. I opened my mouth and laughed silently. If this child is used in the right place, he can indeed play his role, even though they are in high positions. The relationship between the master and his wife is not solid. Actually, I should have thought of it earlier. After Lu Xinghe's death, the lady hoped to rely on her natal family's power, but the master did not want to let her do so. I asked the wrong person before. I went to the west corner gate with confidence, under the pretext of delivering a message to my wife. Right now the madam is busy dealing with Madame Zhou, who has offended the distinguished guest, and the master is busy apologizing to Zhou Yuushan, so they have no time to trouble me. This was the first time I truly walked out of the Marquis's mansion. Carriages and sedan chairs were shuttling along the long street, and pale paper money was blown into the wind and then trampled into the mud. I took a deep breath and went straight to the carriage belonging to the Earl of Zhongyi's mansion. Big brother, Master Zhou asked me to come and deliver something to him. Please tell Tongbing for me. The coachman probably had never seen someone like me, who came up and shouted that he wanted to see his master without even knowing his name. He was stunned for a moment before he stretched out his hand to me. Excuse me, who does the young lady work for? What would you like to give to my young master? I took a half step back and hid my hands behind my back. Young Master Zhou instructed that it must be delivered in person. Big brother, just pass it on for me. The servant tilted his head and glanced into the mansion. Then please wait a moment. Young lady, my young master hasn't come out yet. I moved 2 steps to the side in the direction of his gaze and stood in the shadow of the carriage. Since I'm begging people to take me away, the fewer people who see me the better. It seemed like someone laughed softly. The low car curtain was suddenly lifted, and a hand reached out and pulled me into the car with just one push. My scream was muffled by that hand. My back hit the car board. Although it was painful, it was bearable. Zhou Yuushan's voice was soft, but his eyes were bright. He looked at me, but spoke to outsiders. He said, "Let's go." The horses' hooves made a crisp sound as they stepped on the stone road. No one cares. No one chases. I never thought it would be so easy. Zhou Yuushan used only 2 words to make my wish come true in the Marquis mansion that I had tried to escape from countless times despite trying to die. The light in the carriage was not very bright. Zhou Yuushan looked at me with a smile. You are quite clever, girl. Who told you about my carriage markings? This wasn't the first time he looked at me like that. Every time, he looks at me the same way. He knew that I had other wishes, and was happy to satisfy my wishes because of the freshness I brought him. But this is not the question Zhou Yuushan really wants to ask me. He leaned against the wall of the car and looked down. It's really interesting. A servant from the Marquis's mansion has to beg an outsider for help. What important thing did you steal? This is a fatal question. It is a big taboo for a servant to betray his master. What's more, if I dare to say that Lu Xinghe is the result of incest between the lady and the old marquis, it would be a big deal for a mere servant to accuse the two masters of the marquis's mansion. Not to mention that there is no evidence now. Even if there was, I would still be dead. So there is only one thing I can say. Nourish the people's nature. Improve people's livelihood. The people are the foundation of the government. The country depends on the people. If the water is not deep, it will not be able to support the boat. This is the foundation of the country and the heart of the sage. The carriage drove over the uneven road, causing my voice to tremble a little. Lu Xinghe once asked me who taught me to read, and I made up an excuse to fool him. He didn't delve into it further, but just mentioned it out of nowhere after he got off me one time. Be more careful next time. Don't let anyone see that you recognize so many words. In this world, it is not a sin for a woman to be literate. But I am a slave. It is a sin for a slave to have thoughts. He was right. But I couldn't listen. I looked up and met Zhou Yuoshan's eyes, which were as bright as stars. It was this servant who wrote these words on that assignment. The copy of Zhuangzi that Zhou Yuoshan gave was not to Lu Xinghe, but to me. The one he looked up to was not the Marquis mansion, but me. Even if his interest in me is vague and almost non-existent, it is the only thing I can grasp. It belongs only to me, and I can use it to gain a glimmer of hope. I heard the familiar laugh again, insolent, ostentatious, and looking at him with undisguised malice. Zhou Yuoshan seemed to have heard a huge joke and could hardly control his laughter. My heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. The last person who smiled at me like this was my wife. She smiled and told me a huge secret, then told me to die without hesitation. The high-ranking people in this era always look the same. They all wear a mask called etiquette and dignity, which makes it impossible for you to guess what they are thinking in their hearts or see through their condescending appearance. Then, when you are about to break through the cage, they can easily knock you back to the starting point. They call this kind of behavior education. This is the case with the Marquis mansion and Zhou Yuoshan's as well. Interesting. The servants around the idiot are actually more useful than him. He spoke casually, but one sentence cut off my retreat. Don't tell me that you learned all this knowledge from your master. How could Lu Xinghe have the time to teach the servants around him if he himself didn't understand something? The space in the carriage was small. I knelt at the foot of Zhou Yuoshan. When I lowered my head, I could see his boots embroidered with dark red patterns. He is waiting for my answer. If I answer satisfactorily, he might keep me. If I answered wrong, he would throw me out of the car and leave me to fend for myself. If he was more vicious, he would send me back to the Marquis mansion and tell everyone that this slave was so bold as to hide in his car and escape from the mansion. No one dared to question the mistakes in his words. Like no one would listen to my argument. What exactly is Zhou Yuoshan interested in? He had no shortage of learned people around him, and even less of maids. Why did he save me at that time? What does he want from me? His fingers were long and white, with warm fingertips. He stroked my cheek and finally gently lifted my chin. Really? He looked me over, not seeming to care about my answer. It's definitely a little different. The carriage did not stop, but the bustle and bustle outside gradually faded away. I looked into his eyes and my heart sank. I was so focused on escaping from the mansion that I overlooked one thing. No matter how dazzling the stars are, the sky is still dark. How good can a person be who can thrive in the Imperial Academy on his own, win the favor of the Crown Prince, and make the master, a person who has inherited the title, treat him with all respect? If I ask him for help, the price I'll pay will only be higher. Zhou Yuoshan did not send me back, nor did he abandon me halfway. I was directly placed in a small courtyard with a separate entrance and exit, and 2 maids and 4 servants were there to take care of my daily life. When he left, the last thing I asked him for was an abortion pill. Zhou Yuoshan seemed surprised, and then seemed to have figured something out. He closed the door without saying anything. I was locked up in another cage from the inner courtyard of the mansion. Of course, I also tried to ask the little girls where Zhou Yuoshan was, but all I got was their respectful answer. The young master has instructed me to serve the young lady well. I don't know anything else. If you ask me several times, I won't mention it anymore. We are all workers without human rights. What right do I have to make things difficult for her? But I think Zhou Yuoshan won't support a lazy person like me for too long. The 2 little girls became more and more familiar with me. From calling me girl at first, to calling me sister later, and finally, I simply dragged her to the same table to eat with her. I don't know if it's my illusion, but since I became familiar with the two little girls, my treatment has started to get better and better. Zhou Yueshan came to see me more often. Many good things that I had never even seen before began to be sent to my yard every now and then. He even hired a teacher for me who would come to teach me every day. Rain or shine, a new group of maids served me, and they intentionally or unintentionally taught me some rules that I had not learned before. I felt something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what. The Marquis's mansion does not need maids to be able to read and write, nor does it need servants to have their own ideas. A beating every 3 days was just to teach us a lesson. A servant only needs to be obedient. If the master is good to you, it is a favor. If he beats you or scolds you, you should be grateful. If he spares your life, it is a mercy. But the rules taught by the new maid were much more strict than those taught in the Marquis mansion back then. You cannot look your master in the eye. You cannot guess what your master is thinking. And you cannot be disrespectful in front of your master. Stand straight. Walk steadily. And your arms must not shake at all when holding things. Thunder, lightning, rain and dew are all blessings. I started to feel inexplicably anxious. I even asked him directly once, "Whatever you want to ask, I will tell you everything I know. Killing people is not enough. I have done it so many times. This round is not enough. What I fear most is being boiled like a frog in warm water, after being safe for a long time. When I think back to the time when I was working non-stop and dying, I always have a dazed feeling of, I don't know how I managed to survive. I'm not afraid that Zhou Yueshan will do anything excessive with me. What I'm afraid of is that I have lost the courage and determination that I had at that time." However, the latter just stared at me for a while and suddenly laughed. Lu Xinghe really doesn't know what's good. He tilted his head and gave me an embarrassed expression. He's so smart. I don't even know where to start cheating him. I stayed in Zhou Yueshan's small house for 3 months. It lasted so long that the two girls couldn't help but wonder, and asked me privately whether Zhou Yueshan was planning to raise me as a concubine and then find an opportunity to make me his concubine. I think they are really brave. Even if I die a few more times, I won't dare to have such thoughts. God knows how much it would take to be Zhou Yueshan's aunt. Maybe I had seen the other side of Zhou Yueshan beneath his gentle appearance from the very beginning, and he became less and less concealed in front of me. When he took me to meet the important person, he even laid his cards on the table for me. I had someone check it out, and my background is clean. You don't have to worry about your family. Some are dead, some are sold. There are only a few left. You are in a death indenture in the mansion, and now you are a runaway slave. It will not be easy to get lucky and meet someone who dares to take you in. I lowered my head and replied, "Yes, respectfully, my lord. You have given me a new life. I will never forget this until my death. I am willing to obey your orders." I think I guessed who he was going to take me to see. Why did the master's return of Zhuangzi to Zhou Yueshan lead to the prince's reward? Why would the Duke Zhongyi's mansion speak for the Marquis mansion? What are you talking about? What kind of love are you asking for? Would Zhou Yueshan really look up to Lu Xinghe, a playboy, just because of that sentence that was slightly to his liking? At that time, I was completely focused on the joy of finally prying Zhou Yueshan's identity out of the master's mouth, and had no time to ponder the true meaning revealed in those few short sentences. Zhou Yueshan has more than just a close relationship with the prince. Standing behind him was the entire Zhongyi Marquis mansion. A copy of Zhuangzi and a sudden reward from the prince caused the entire mansion to be labeled as the prince's party. But I was still complacent, thinking that Zhou Yueshan was impressed by Lu Xinghe's talent and appreciated my ideas. I am the joke. I have memorized all the rules I learned these days. When we got off the car, Zhou Yueshan rarely spoke to me and gave me some advice. Since you have guessed what this place is, you should understand your identity. Answer whatever is asked, and don't look at what you shouldn't. You have no right to refuse. Until the end, I still didn't get a clear picture of what the legendary crown prince looked like. The most common thing the maids who taught the rules taught was that as a slave, looking the master in the face was overstepping one's authority and was outrageous. What's more, there were 4 palace maids following me the whole time, from front to back, left to right, staring at me intently with bated breath. The prince asked me 3 questions. Did you write that sentence? Did you escape from the mansion by yourself? Who else is home? The first question is easy to answer. I have already made it clear to Zhou Yueshan, so I can't give an inconsistent answer. The second question was also okay. Although Zhou Yueshan helped me, I was indeed the one who walked out of the mansion gate by myself. As for the third question, I could only bury my head deeply. Your Highness, I don't remember. The person behind the felt curtain laughed softly. Well said. Give me a reward. Zhou Yueshan said. I don't have the power to refuse, and the prince didn't intend to give me the option of refusing. But that doesn't mean I can't give it a try. I am a humble servant and do not deserve your grace and reward. Please think twice. The figure behind the curtain seemed to stand up. After a moment, a low sigh came from above my head. Too much is as bad as too little. Wang Feng. Don't push it too hard. It will turn out not to be like him. The emperor is too suspicious. Being too perfect would make one seem too artificial. This is not something I should hear. Death over and over again taught me one thing. Once the person in a higher position starts talking to you about information that you shouldn't know, there are only two possible outcomes. Either you are going to be a dead man, or you're already a dead man. Zhou Yueshan wouldn't have raised me for so long just to send me to the prince to kill for fun. That leaves only one final answer. The goal they want to achieve will definitely cost me my life. And they didn't think I would survive at all. The prince's words are more effective than anything else. When I returned to the small courtyard, the 4 maids who taught me the rules had disappeared. The teacher began to become tolerant and turned a blind eye to my behavior of skipping classes for 3 days and resting for 2 days. Zhou Yueshan gave me a new username and made me forget my previous name. I dare to ask you a question. Sir. I held the wooden sign that represented my good citizenship and called out to Zhou Yueshan, who was about to leave. The latter, with his hand still on the door, gave me a bland, In response, I looked down at the name on the sign. The 4th daughter of the Chang family was named Shan. I closed my eyes and finally changed the way I asked the question. How long can I stay here? Zhou Yueshan was not surprised by my question. Guessed it. He simply turned back and sat on the stone bench in the small courtyard. Tell me, how much did you guess? The 2 little girls had been sent away long ago, and only he and I were left in the yard. Without the repeated trial and error in the mansion, I was trapped in this small square courtyard, and there were still too few things I could access. The emperor and the crown prince are suspicious of each other, and I don't know who I resemble. So Zhou Yueshan and the crown prince both want to make a fuss about this similarity. Zhou Yueshan would never find me a new identity out of kindness. I would never be so crazy as to take a runaway slave like me to see the prince. I could guess that they wanted me to replace someone, but I had no idea who that person was. Maybe it has something to do with the imperial palace. Or maybe, let me be bolder, it has something to do with the man sitting on the dragon throne now. Zhou Yueshan seemed to have drunk some plum wine, and he looked tired and lazy. Don't worry, now that His Highness has asked me to stop caring about you, I won't do anything to you. Today is probably close to the 15th day of the lunar month. The full moon is hanging obliquely in the sky, looming among the clouds. The bright moonlight and the sweetness of plums softened the sharpness in Zhou Yueshan's body. He patted the stool next to him. Please sit down. I sat down on one side of the stool, turned sideways, and kept some distance between me and him. I want to know who I look like. This is the limit of what I can ask. There are too many. Zhou Yueshan won't say any less, and this opportunity is wasted. Zhou Yueshan supported his head with his hands, looked at me with interest, and then laughed softly. He took my hand, dipped my index finger in the cup of tea he had drunk, and then held my hand again and wrote my new name on the small stone table. Stroke by stroke. I'm actually quite curious. What kind of place would spend money and effort to teach girls about literature and etiquette, but not teach them good calligraphy? His breath fell on my ears, no louder than thunder. Why don't you tell me? Zhou Yueshan didn't tell me who I look like, but I seem to have figured out a part of the answer. The next day I was stuffed into an ordinary mule cart without any markings, passed through a long corridor, and touched the edge of the world's center of power. Zhou Yueshan walked me a short distance, but he only said one sentence to me. Live well. He seems to be particularly good at manipulating people's hearts, especially what I am thinking. In the past few months, I have hesitated countless times, wondering whether I should just hang myself with a white silk scarf and start over. As long as I could start over again, I could still find Zhou Yuishan again, use his power to get me out of the Marquis mansion, and then try a new way out. However, Zhou Yuishan always managed to accurately grasp my hesitation, and when I was about to give up, he would throw out something new, the truth that I wanted desperately to dig out, and put it in front of me like a carrot tied to a donkey's forehead. Then he told me calmly that if I wanted to live a good life, I must figure these things out. If you don't save enough capital for yourself, even if you have countless chances to start over, you will still die miserably. The frog had no choice whether to jump into the warm water or not. Me too. He kept me hanging with a little hope, which was barely enough for him, and kept me moving forward along the dead end he had drawn for me. Then, when I was about to be swallowed up, he gave me a little warmth, allowing me to quench my thirst. Despicable, but incredibly effective. Probably because the prince sent someone to give me a heads up, I was assigned directly to Chang Wenguan, as the palace maid led the way. She recited the rules to me and gossiped at the same time. I heard that Chang Wenguan had been closed before. Why is it open this time? And why are so many people allowed in? What's so strange about that? The decision of a saint must have its own reasons. If it weren't for the opening of Chengwen Hall, why would he suddenly think of summoning so many female historians? The older palace servant pointed at our group with his chin, as if giving a reminder or expressing his emotion. You are so lucky. It has been so many years, and no one has ever summoned a female historian, let alone selected one from a good family. I huddled in the crowd, trying to reduce my presence as much as possible. Since that time, the prince never summoned me again, and Zhou Yuishan never asked me what to do or how to do it. They seemed to have an unspoken understanding. I would have done better not knowing the whole story. Of course, maybe they have another consideration. People who know nothing will not reveal too much information. Chengwen Pavilion is the most remote small attic in the Imperial Garden, hidden behind a dense bamboo forest. From the outside, one can only vaguely see a small pointed corner sticking out from the green leaves. The first task I was assigned was to deliver the copied scriptures to the Queen's palace. The people who came in with me were almost jealous. After all, not everyone is so lucky as to be assigned such a lucrative job where one can meet the master and receive rewards as soon as they enter the palace. Then I was slapped 3 times. The head maid in the Queen's palace personally took a palm-wide wooden stick and hit me hard on the mouth. After the beating, she took me in to express her gratitude to the Queen. I knelt on the thick Persian tribute carpet in the hall, watching the blood mixed with saliva fall drop by drop into the heart of the peony flower and disappear. The Queen leaned on the beauty couch, and the surroundings were eerily quiet. The maid who beat me walked to the Queen's side and stood by with her hands hanging down. Without Zhou Yuishan here, there will be no one to remind me what to say and what not to say. At that moment, I even felt that Zhou Yuishan was a pretty good person, even though he wanted to use me. He was clearly a scumbag. I knocked my head heavily on the ground. Thank you, Madam Queen, for your reward. The Queen's eyes fell on me. You know what's good for you this time. She probably took a sip of tea and paused for a moment before continuing to ask me, since you are so smart, why don't you guess why I want to reward you? The initial numbness on the lips gradually faded, replaced by increasingly intense swelling and pain. Every time I opened my mouth, I was tearing open a new wound. I kowtowed again. I didn't know the rules and offended Your Majesty. Your Majesty has been so generous that you have spared my life. This is the greatest reward. The Queen seemed to sneer and put the teacup on the table. Okay, go ahead. She leaned back on the couch and closed her eyes, as if looking at me again would dirty her eyes. Before leaving, I heard the Queen's voice again. It's as normal as saying what a nice weather today, she said. Since you know you don't know the rules, I will reward you again. Go ring the bell tonight. You don't need to come back to thank me again. It wasn't until I walked back to Chang Wenguan that I realized my legs were weak. I finally understood what Zhou Yuishan meant by living a good life before I entered the palace. If Madame Ho wants to kill me, she needs to make up a suitable reason. In the palace, I don't even deserve this reason. That's not right either. If the Empress wanted to kill me, I would even have to think of a reason for her and praise her for killing me as the greatest kindness she could show me. Human life is not even as valuable as that of an ant. The nights in late autumn already feel as chilly as those in early winter. Even though I wrapped myself in my jacket again and again, I couldn't resist the cold wind that blew in through the seam of my neck. Thanks to the beating given by the Queen, I was finally able to roughly guess the identity of the person who looked very similar to me mentioned by the prince. How low can the status of a person who can appear beside the crown prince, the empress and the emperor at the same time be? Not to mention the palace ladies' private discussions about reopening the selection process for female historians, and the overly familiar style of the book classification catalog in the Chongwenguan. Each one of them points directly to a result. She and I both traveled through time. The ideas of equality and freedom are engraved in our bones and blood, making both her and me outcasts in the eyes of the world. The independence and equal rights granted by the new era became a death warrant for me and her. No matter how hard we try to pretend and fit in, we are still different. The female history and Chongwenguan were the results of her struggle against the times. It's just that her existence has been wiped out in this deep palace, while I am still struggling with death again and again. A stone fell from the low eaves and rolled to my feet. I sprained my ankle and the bell in my hand started to jingle. Then the second stone rolled over. The vermilion wooden door, which had been tightly closed, opened a small crack at some point, and a head popped out through the crack, and waved at me stealthily. "You, come here." He was afraid that I didn't understand, so he stretched out his arm and pointed precisely at me when I was about to look back. "Yes, it's you." Then, I was dragged into the empty palace that had been vacant for a long time without any explanation. The familiar feeling of fear swept over me like an overwhelming force. The scenes of humiliation and death that I had experienced time and time again rolled over in my mind. If those memories had substance, they weighed down my breath. At that moment, there was only one thought left in my mind. Even if I die again, something like that will never happen to me again. The night patrol guard walked through the corridor I had walked before. The man covered my mouth with one hand and held my hands with the other. He was very strong and pushed me against the wall, making me unable to move. The copper bell I was holding fell at my feet. Fortunately, he was so busy holding my hands and telling me not to speak that he forgot that I could still move my feet. This is not the inner courtyard of the Marquis's mansion where the madam can have absolute control over everything. I just need to lure the guards over to buy me a little more time. As long as the Crown Prince and Zhou Yuoshan still think I am useful, they will not allow me to be slandered to death. I kicked the copper bell away, while the guards outside were shouting at her. She struggled hard and bit the edge of his palm. The wound from the slap in the face opened again, but I didn't care anymore. The palace gate was pushed open with great force, and the guards rushed in with chaotic footsteps. At that moment, my mind was clear, and I had even figured out how to distinguish. The queen's punishment turned out to be my greatest reliance. A robe was pulled over my head. The man did not let go, nor did he panic as I had imagined. He even took advantage of the moment when I relaxed and pulled me behind him. The chaotic footsteps stopped, and I heard the sound of the guard sheathing his sword. The leader's voice was respectful and surprised. "Your Highness." The man holding me snorted. "Go down. I will explain to my father tomorrow." The cramped room fell silent again. The copper bell stopped in the corner, but no one looked at it again. Even if my skirt was exposed outside his outer robe, even if everyone knew that there was a palace maid in this room who was punished to work the night shift, they were all blind. When he left, the guards were even considerate enough to close the door for him. The man finally let me go. He twisted his wrist and took a hissing breath. "That's a really cruel bite." I fell to the ground, and his robe fell at my feet. "I heard that today the Queen Mother punished a new female historian. It must be you." The man looked at me, turned around, picked up the bell and put it on the table. He didn't come closer to me, but instead dusted the chair off and sat down. I grabbed the hem of my skirt tightly and didn't want to answer any of his questions. Seducing a prince and seducing a young master are not crimes of the same magnitude at all. Anyway, he will be dragged out and beaten to death when daybreak comes. So why should I think so much? The room was dead silent because of my one-sided performance. Intellectually speaking, I should try my best to find out the identity of the person in front of me before I die. In case Zhou Yuoshan is unreliable, I will still have a new way out in the next round. But maybe I've been too nervous recently. Or maybe the ending of the previous time traveler shocked me too much. Or maybe it's simply because of lack of sleep that my brain stopped working. I suddenly felt very tired. When I came here, the original owner was being whipped. The original owner was probably too weak to withstand the whipping this time. So I was stuffed into this body. How ridiculous. Even if the person being beaten is already dead, the executioners still have to beat him enough before they can stop. But what can I change? I can't even change my own ending. What's the point of being unwilling? The man's eyes were always on me, and the inquiry in his eyes was so obvious that I suddenly felt irritated. What are you looking at? There's nothing good to see. I grabbed his robe and threw it at him. However, the clothes were too big and my arms were not long enough. So the robe did not even touch the man's toes and fell lightly back to the ground. The man suddenly laughed as if he saw something new. You're not afraid of me. He looked me over and came to a conclusion. Then he asked, do you know who I am? I know what I should say. I should immediately kneel on the ground, kowtow and apologize, and tell him that I was blind and offended him. But I don't want to. So what if he is a prince? So what if he is a crown prince? So what if he is a queen? After dying once, we went our separate ways again. So I just rolled my eyes at him. I don't know. I love whoever I want. He laughed even louder. I thought I might have run into a lunatic. Given his status and in this era, whatever he does to me doesn't require any price and is normal. But the biggest abnormality is that he does nothing. He sat with me all night. I couldn't help myself at the end. And when he stood up, I asked him the question I wanted to ask most. You won't kill me. The first ray of sunlight in the morning shone on his face through the worn window paper. The young prince turned his head to the side, and the sunlight cast a thin golden edge on the outline of his face. He suddenly blinked at me against the sunlight. He said, you guess. I guess you are a big-headed ghost. After so many deaths, he is the first one that makes me speechless. However, he completely ignored my refusal and put his outer robe, which was dragging on the ground, on me, and dragged me all the way to the gate of the Qianqing Palace. Yes, just pull it. The kind that pulls with hands clasped together, in front of all the palace maids, eunuchs and guards along the way. I told him all the excuses I could think of, from begging for mercy because my status was too low to be worthy of your mercy, to the superstitious threats that were very ominous because I was a widow with a dead child before entering the palace, to the cursing that if you didn't let go, I would run over and die on the road in front of you. And all I got in return was the other party's 2 words. You are still calm. Shut up. The decisive blow. In the end, I could only watch him press both me and himself onto the brick floor at the entrance of the Qianqing Palace, just blocking the emperor's procession that had finished packing and was preparing to go to court. Father, I like this lady. Please give her to me. The young prince spoke seriously, but said something that was not serious. To increase the odds, he pulled me into his arms. I couldn't help myself and took it yesterday. The guards should have a record of it. Wait a minute. Brother, do you want to listen to what you are talking about? Aren't you just shouting at the top of your voice throughout the palace that you slept with me last night? Do you have to be so brave? What the man said was so inappropriate for children that I forgot to control my expression for a moment and subconsciously looked up. Then, I saw that the prince standing next to the emperor had the same expression as me, and with a click, it cracked. I guess Zhou Yueshan and the prince are planning to send me into the palace as a favorite concubine. That's why the queen summoned me immediately to set the rules. But no one could have imagined that someone would suddenly appear and intercept the matter. What's more, thanks to the queen's 3 slaps, my lips are now as swollen as when Tony Leung Chiu-wai took the 5 poison powder in A Chinese Odyssey. It definitely doesn't look good. So much so that after the emperor dazedly agreed to let me become the prince's concubine, he still asked him a question specifically. That's it. Are you sure? The man pushed me to the ground, made me kowtow, and then answered in a firm tone. I like her inner qualities. I'm numb. As long as you are happy, brother. The prince was probably also numb, because he muted the entire time, and even forgot to use the reason that I was of low status and unworthy of serving the noble prince to stop him from taking me away. Until the man took me away, I could still feel the prince's shocked and complicated eyes as if they had turned into a physical entity, piercing my back with a burning pain. Adult princes can leave the palace and set up their own residences. Thanks to the rules Zhou Yueshan taught me, I was not too surprised when the man took me into the carriage out of the palace. What really surprised me was that the first question he asked me after getting in the car was highly consistent with the question I asked him. He asked me, "May I have your name?" I asked him, "Who are you?" Okay, I'm starting to get confused again. Which one should I say? Answering Chang Shan means that I am still on the prince's side. And answering Qingping means that I want to sell out my two past masters. The pain of death brought about by the rules of this era is in constant conflict with my intuition. What did he know? What can I say? Was he bringing me out because of a long-planned wait and observation? Or was it just a spur-of-the-moment act of happiness? My intuition told me that he was different from anyone I had met before. But too many bloody and tearful lessons have forced me to be cautious and protect myself. I unconsciously lowered my eyes again. The next moment, warm fingers stopped my movements. It was different from the ferocity with which my wife pinched me. And it was also different from Zhou Yuashan's scrutinizing arrogance. He really looked me in the eyes and asked again. What I asked was your name. I was in a trance for a moment, and the long-forgotten answer came out of my mouth. Xia Mingru. It is not the original one of this body. It is not something Lu Xinghe gave me casually. And it is not something Zhou Yuashan made up for me. This is my original name, which belongs to me. No one knows it except me, and no one cares about it. I have been here for so long that I almost forgot what my original name is. The person opposite me stretched out his hand and shook my palm. He exerted a little force, pulled me up, and sat me opposite him. Hello, Xia Mingru. My name is Xiao Yuanchu. The sunlight poured in from the half-rolled curtains of the carriage, and the hustle and bustle of people coming and going outside seemed to be paused at that moment. To me, the whole world seemed to be reduced to nothing but the crisp sound of horse hooves and the clear and burning light in his eyes as he looked at me. Xiao Yuanchu told me a story. The story of a woman who thought she had found love. The woman was dissatisfied with the harshness and oppression of women in this world. So she had a crazy idea. She used someone else's name, disguised herself as a man, and took the imperial examination as a commoner, and was selected into the palace. However, her luck only stopped at the palace selection. Someone discovered her impersonation and exposed her on the spot. Even though her lies were exposed, she was not afraid at all. She quoted from classics and spoke eloquently in front of the king. For the emperor, such a woman was undoubtedly a novel experience. Her article became a testimony to the beginning of her love with him. Nothing else. From then on, there was one less ambitious candidate on the list of successful candidates, and one more talented concubine in the harem. He accompanied her, and within a year, she was promoted from a fifth-ranked talent to an unrivaled imperial concubine. He gave her the most luxurious palace, the most precious jewels, and allowed her to indulge in her wild imaginations. She wished that women would not be confined to the inner chambers. So he selected female historians from the families of officials and had them enter the palace to accompany her and relieve her boredom. She hoped that the palace maids could have someone to rely on. So he changed the law and provided that any palace maid over the age of 20 who wished to leave the palace would be given silver to return home and marry off on her own. She hoped that women could be literate and have a good understanding of morality. So she built the Chongwen Hall and invited teachers to give lectures every day. All the palace ladies could come and listen to the lectures in their spare time. He suppressed all the impeachment discussions from the censors outside and ignored them all. Until she gave birth to a prince for him. She devoted herself to raising their children, eager to teach them everything she knew. Little do people know that when the novelty wears off, the rocks hidden under the tide will reveal their jagged corners, which can cause people to suffer bloody head injuries or even death on the spot. The emperor finally discovered her ambition to touch the imperial power because of her talent. The queen accurately seized the rift between herself and the emperor and joined forces with court officials to launch a collective attack. All the favors and privileges that the emperor had previously enjoyed were turned into swords, became her sins, and backfired on her. She became a taboo that could not be mentioned in the entire palace. All traces of her were erased one by one. The palace no longer recruited female historians. Palace maids were no longer allowed to attend school, and the Chongwengwen was abandoned. The palace where the king once lingered has gradually become desolate and dilapidated, and her name has been forgotten by everyone. The only one left was the child with half the emperor's blood in his body. The palace ladies who had received her favor tried their best to keep him and let him grow up in the cold palace. Then the old generation is replaced by the new one. Do you know who she is? Xiao Yuanchu led me through the entire prince's mansion. She is concubine Mu. When the imperial concubine was in great favor, even the empress could not stand up to her. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, carrying endless melancholy and loneliness. She is my mother. Xiao Yuanchu left the best room in the prince's mansion for me. He seemed to have an almost paranoid indulgence and expectation of me, and he did not shy away from me in anything he did. He let me wander around his house, and even when I accidentally broke into his study, he still had people report to him the news from his spies in the palace. When he was not in the palace, he would also analyze for me the current situation in the court, how the prince was becoming more and more impatient, and how he was working hard on the emperor, gradually increasing his weight in the emperor's heart. He assumed that I understood it all. I also asked him why he trusted me so much. What if I was a spy hired by the prince and one day I would leak all the news in the prince's mansion? At that time, he seemed to be looking at me, but his eyes seemed to pass through me and look at the nothingness that I was completely unaware of. You really look like my mother. If my mother were still alive, she would never do this. His voice was very soft, as if he was talking to me, but also as if he was talking to himself. The next second, his forehead rested against my shoulder. His head rested heavily on my shoulder. Xia Mingru, I miss her so much. I think I really did meet a lunatic, but I am willing to go crazy with him. Winter has arrived, and the emperor's health is getting worse day by day. Xiao Yuanchu spent more and more time in the palace. He even gave me the prince's seal. If it really doesn't work, you can open the warehouse as you like. The guards will obey your orders. You can do whatever you want. When the small golden seal with the imperial beast Qilin carved on it fell into my palm, his expression was still relaxed. It was as if he was just going to attend an ordinary palace banquet, and after the banquet he would come back to set off fireworks with me to sober up. But if it was really just a normal summons, why would he leave the guards of the entire prince's palace to me? I threw the seal back. Don't want. He pretended to be surprised. Don't be ignorant of the goods. Although I was not favored by my father before, I have been running the business for a long time. I have a lot of things in the warehouse. The prince's seal can be used for more than just opening a storehouse. He and I both know it. No matter what, I am the concubine that your father has awarded to you. You have neither a wife nor a concubine. I am the most senior person in the entire prince's mansion except you. Is it possible that the concubine awarded by the emperor himself is not worth the qualification to enter the palace and attend banquets? Recently, rumors of discord between the emperor and the empress have been rampant, and the gossip that the emperor intends to change the crown prince has become more credible. The queen has a firm grip on the inner palace. The prince's actions became increasingly hasty, and he openly and secretly stuffed a lot of his own people into the imperial guards. This year, there is a banquet in the palace and important officials are gathered together. It is naturally the best time to transfer power. He stopped smiling and wanted to scold me for being naughty. I jumped into the carriage before he could speak. Let's go. I'm worried about you. They are all excuses. Even if something unexpected happens tonight, even if Xiao Yuanchu fails, I still have a way to reverse it all. The worst that could happen is that I'll be back to square one again, and Xiao Yuanchu will no longer remember me. What does that matter? I want to be with him until the very end, no matter what the road holds. That's enough. The queen drugged father. After the eunuch led the way, he quietly retreated to the side. Neither the emperor nor the empress was present at that time. The prince, on the other hand, had already sat at the upper east seat, and raised his glass to Xiao Yuanchu from afar, acting like a friendly and respectful brother. Xiao Yuanchu raised his glass politely, covered his mouth with his sleeve, and whispered the news to me. The Imperial Hospital just sent a message that father may not survive this night. I subconsciously wanted to look up at the throne, but Xiao Yuanchu pushed me down again. Pour me a drink. I've been teaching you for so long. Why haven't you learned to hide your emotions? Covering his hand with his wide sleeves, he gently patted my hand. Since you were sent to the palace by the prince through connections, and now you are with me, he will naturally pay extra attention to you. It's okay. His palms were dry and warm, and seemed to have a magical power that soothed my tension that shouldn't have existed. The rapidly aging emperor was almost carried to the throne by the empress and palace servants. The eunuchs sang the process of serving wine at the banquet on behalf of the emperor. The once majestic emperor is now like a lifeless puppet, barely sitting on the throne but being manipulated by others. As the emperor was unwell, the empress naturally took over the banquet that was supposed to be hosted by him. But when the queen raised the wine glass for the second time, the emperor, who had his head lowered, suddenly stood up tremblingly. something strange happened suddenly. The prince rushed forward, supported the emperor, and screamed in surprise. The emperor is coughing up blood. Call the imperial physician. The black-armored soldiers guarding outside the hall filed in, armed with swords and weapons, filling the hall to the brim. The emperor seemed to be exhausted. He supported the prince and gasped for a long time before he stretched out his sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Why are all the royal doctors wearing armor today? When was this rule changed? How come I didn't even know about it? All the ministers in the hall held their breath, waiting for the two people standing at the highest points of power to decide the outcome. The prince was choked by the emperor's words and could not continue what he wanted to say. I guess the prince's original plan was for the imperial physician to announce in public that the emperor was beyond help, and then for the black-armored army to suppress the emperor's intention to change the crown prince. After all, an emperor who can no longer speak cannot publicly announce his decision to change the crown prince. As long as the emperor does not propose a change of crown prince, the crown prince is the only recognized heir. No one could question it. But it was obvious that the emperor was not as unwell as the prince had expected, and he could even speak in a way that all the ministers could understand. Xiao Yuanchu lowered his eyes. The emperor loosened his hand, pushed the prince away, and overturned the table in front of him. The queen had evil intentions and was plotting a rebellion. She even ordered the palace maids to poison my food. If it weren't for my son Yuanchu's carefulness, I would have been killed by the poisoned woman. The prince knew what the queen was doing, but he didn't stop her and instead helped her to commit atrocities. How can such a vicious and unfilial person be worthy of inheriting the throne? The emperor stood up straight, no longer looking sick as before. Someone come. The prince finally reacted and drew his sword. Father, please understand. I have no intention of disobeying you. It's just that you have been deceived by evil people recently and have thought about changing the crown prince. Father once taught you that the crown prince is the foundation of a country and cannot be easily abandoned. I have no desire for the throne. This move is only to clear the emperor's side. Please understand my painstaking efforts. The black-armored army also followed suit. The noise came from far away. It is the sound of metal clashing with weapons. Xiao Yuanchu finally stood up. It is already irrefutable evidence that the crown prince has raised an army to rebel. The emperor is merciful and considers that you have been deceived by the traitors, so he does not want to pursue the matter. All the generals and soldiers are loyal pillars of the country. Do you think you will also follow him in the assassination and rebellion? The silver-armored imperial guards finally arrived, and Xiao Yuanchu also ran close to the emperor. The winner has been decided. I stepped aside during the chaos. In fact, there should be no suspense. From the moment Xiao Yuanchu received the news and learned that the queen had poisoned the emperor, this result was almost foreseeable. The queen thought that she had the inner palace under her firm control. But wasn't it also under the noses of Xiao Yuanchu and the emperor? I stared closely at the people on the throne. The prince and the queen had been taken away, and the saint seemed to be rewarding Xiao Yuanchu. Will he be crowned the crown prince immediately? Or is it that the storm has just passed and your majesty still needs to reconsider? My heart suddenly felt cold. The hot and wet feeling instantly soaked my chest. I subconsciously lowered my head, and a dagger pierced through my chest and pierced my heart. I was embraced by a familiar person. I knew you would come. Zhou Yuashan's voice sounded like a ghost in his ears. As long as you die, everything will reset. Right. A sleeve covered my eyes. The pattern is very familiar. Sky blue with dark flowing cloud patterns. It was the sleeve that I took out at the Marquis mansion to ask him to save me. It was the sleeve that I desperately tore off his clothes that time. I once thought that he made the move at that time just because he thought I could make a profit, and not for any other reason. Even though I once wondered whether he might come back with me because of this sleeve, he never revealed the slightest flaw in front of me. So I put the matter behind me. But I never thought that he knew everything from beginning to end. He turned his wrist and stabbed the dagger in my heart twice more. His lips were pressed against my ear, as if a lover was whispering, but the words he uttered were chilling. He said, "Wait for me. We need to move faster this time." I returned to that familiar room again. The chill from when the dagger pierced my heart seemed to still remain in my chest. The green ivy was still wiping her flower stand unconsciously. Madame and Nanny Zhou arrived as quickly as ever. Perhaps it was because I had experienced the influence of the power of the crown prince and the empress, and had stayed in Prince Xiao Yuanchu's mansion for a long time. The Marquis's wife's arrogance always seemed to me to be a bit pretentious and powerful on the outside but weak on the inside. You four. Her finger pointed in the direction where I was kneeling. I straightened up. Madam, if you want to punish me again, you will have to wait a while. I looked up at her. When the young master died, he instructed me to personally deliver something to Master Zhou Yueshan of the Marquis Zhongyi's residence. I am a humble servant, and my death is not a pity. But this is what the young master wanted so much. I must do it for him and fulfill his wish before I can follow him. The lady was so angry that she laughed. Oh, I didn't know my son was so ambitious. What is it? Just tell me, and the master and I will naturally complete it for Xinghe. I dropped my eyes. I don't know, but the young master has ordered that when Master Zhou comes, he will naturally tell me what I want. Madam, if you think I'm lying, why don't you wait until Master Zhou arrives and then decide what to do with me? Zhou Yueshan will definitely come, but I don't know if it will be today or tomorrow. I knelt before Lu Xinghe's spirit again. The difference is that this time I don't need to steal that copy of Zhuangzi again. And Lulua won't serve me red bean soup mixed with arsenic again. I can finally calm down and concentrate on keeping the lamp burning for him all night. This time is different from any previous time. I saw countless possibilities for me to escape from the Marquis mansion. But in the end I chose to stay. Zhou Yueshan can start over just like me. If I had known this news earlier, I would probably have cried for joy in an endless cycle. I finally found someone who could share my helplessness and confusion. And now I just feel scared. Zhou Yueshan has never been one of my kind. What would he do now that he knew my biggest secret? The answer is obvious. He would let me die again and again, and then use my death to pave a path for the prince to reach the top with the least cost. He didn't just treat me as a human being. In his eyes, I am nothing more than an ant that can be reused, cannot be broken, cannot be used to death, and can be held in the palm of his hand without paying any cost. Does anyone care about the emotions, hearts, and thoughts of ants? Won't. So Zhou Yueshan won't do it either. Compared to that, I also have to think of a reason for my wife to let me go to see Zhou Yueshan. His actions were more violent. He went straight to the manager and asked for me. The reason given was that I had offended the prince and he wanted to take me back to be punished. There are so many mistakes and omissions, but still no one can question it. I followed him out of the mansion without any obstruction. Yes, you. The look in his eyes when he looked at me changed from approval at first to deep surprise, and then to ridicule, because I took out a dagger directly from my arms. It wasn't the one he used to stab me in the Taiji Hall. I picked it up from Lu Xinghe's study before leaving the house. He still had that relaxed and confident look on his face, as if he didn't believe I could hurt him at all. It seems that Miss Qingping has become very capable in the first prince's mansion. She has even learned how to use a sword. I slowly pulled out the dagger, and the silver light of the sharp blade made me squint. Master Zhou is joking. I slashed twice with the dagger, not to mention that the eldest prince has no time to pay attention to me. Even if he teaches me, what can I learn in such a short time? How can I hurt the adults? The next second, I stabbed the dagger into my own heart, exactly the same spot he pierced me last time. I suppressed the smell of blood that was rapidly rising in my throat and smiled at him. But I want to remind you, my lord, that while the dagger can't kill you, it's still very easy to kill myself. If I lose my life at your hands again, I will never let you off. Your Excellency can prevent people from seeking survival, but can you prevent people from seeking death? I have plenty of patience and time. I can assure you that every time a new emperor ascends the throne, it will be the day of my death. I'm sorry to have to inconvenience you, my lord. You and I are trapped in this cycle together. I'm really curious about who will go crazy first. In the last second before I lost consciousness, I saw for the first time an expression of astonishment appear on Zhou Yueshan's face. There has never been equality between Zhou Yueshan and I. If there were no constraints, he would use me to the point where my life would be worse than death. The only thing I have at my disposal is my own life. When Zhou Yueshan took me to the carriage again, he finally put away his expression that made me uncomfortable. Your identity is ready. I have inquired about it. The eldest prince did not come back with us. This is our biggest advantage. You know the rules. I will talk to His Highness and find a suitable day to arrange for you to enter the palace. Don't make trouble this time. I silently took Huyin into my arms and nodded, saying, I understand. Zhou Yueshan looked at me, seeming to want to say something but stopping himself. He doesn't know that you sent me to the palace. There is nothing wrong with that Zhang Huin. He only took me away for one reason. I know what he wants to ask. After I escaped from their control last time, how many things did Xiao Yuanchu let me get in touch with? Or you can ask this way. What did I know after Xiao Yuanchu took me away last time? I look a lot like the late concubine Mu, don't I? The carriage stopped in the small courtyard, and I jumped out as if I was familiar with the place. 2 little girls were already waiting at the door, respectfully calling me girl. Zhou Yuishan also wanted to walk out of the car, but I turned around and stopped him. Please stay. Sir, I am a humble man and do not deserve your care. I pushed away the 2 girls who wanted to come over to help me. If you want to finish this quickly, you might as well send the abortion medicine earlier, so that I can recover as soon as possible and help you. I sneered and looked up at him. I'm working hard for you, my lord. I took out the sleeve that I had torn off his body and used to cover my eyes when he was killing me, and handed it to him openly. You don't have to bother looking for it this time. It's all my fault. I was blind. This sleeve that appeared on my body for no reason is the ironclad proof that I can continue to reincarnate through death. Last time, after I thought I was sure Zhou Yuishan didn't know the secret of my reincarnation, I quietly buried it under the osmanthus tree in the yard. Who is watching my every move? Who dug it out and presented it to Zhou Yuishan after I left the yard? You really don't need to worry, sir. After all, you already know all my secrets, don't you? You know I have nowhere to go. Even though His Highness has been kind to me, I can't just show up in front of him now. Except for you, my lord. Everyone will think that I am insane and everything I say is nonsense. People who know too much that they shouldn't know don't live long. Hasn't the Lord always taught and protected me in this way? I stared into his eyes and finally couldn't control my anger. Get them out. After a pause, I pointed at Zhou Yuishan and added another sentence. And you, get out too. I know everyone is just doing what they think is right. The 2 maids were just being loyal to Zhou Yuishan, because they were originally Zhou Yuishan's slaves and were just loaned to me for my use. Zhou Yuishan is only concerned with planning for the prince and considering his family. This is his way of survival. Everything they did was understandable and reasonable, even if they themselves are pawns. But I was still angry. I hate myself. Even though I knew this would be the result, I still clung to the little bit of warmth that Zhou Yuishan gave me through his fingers, trying to deceive myself that maybe he still treated me a little differently. Perhaps there really is a little bit of true love mixed in with his use of me. Xiao Yuanchu's indulgence towards me blinded my eyes. I mistakenly believed that besides him, there must be someone in this world who has pure emotions without any interest involved. Until Zhou Yuishan gave me the answer with that clean and sharp knife. I am blind. Don't blame others. Zhou Yuishan sent the 2 little girls away. There were only 4 maids left in the yard to do chores, and they were not allowed to enter my room. He even personally brought me the abortion medicine, and brought a medicine jar to boil it in the yard. I finished the bowl of bitter medicine in one breath and waited calmly for the effect to take effect. I remember the last medicine was good. It took effect quickly and was strong. The only drawback was that it hurt. After drinking that bowl of wine, I struggled in bed for most of the night, splitting 3 of my nails and tearing the mattress. Seeing that I had finished taking the medicine and didn't leave, Zhou Yuishan moved a stool and sat beside my bed. Don't worry. I asked the imperial physician to prescribe a prescription this time. The medicine is milder and not as harmful to your body. There was a slight feeling of falling in my lower abdomen, but it was indeed not as painful as I remembered. I glanced at him. What do you want to hear me say? This guy is really strange. The more I quarreled with him, the more he wanted to get closer to me. Should I say thank you for your kindness? I don't want to say it. I turned over and faced his back, but then I felt uncomfortable lying like that. So I turned back. You don't have to stare at me to confirm anything. The more I look like this, the more I look like the late concubine Mu. Right. What did the prince say at that time? Too much is as bad as too little. Tell Zhou Yuishan not to push me too hard. What did Zhou Yuishan force me to do? He forced me to learn the rules of the palace and told me to be aware of my own identity. Concubine Mu was the one who rebelled against the rules. If I want to be like her, I can't be too knowledgeable about rules. I slapped the bowl beside the bed and knocked it over. You, the crown prince, and the eldest prince are all like this. She is so good. Why don't any of you die with her? The broken porcelain cut my palm, and blood quickly squeezed out from the tiny wound and dripped onto the edge of the bed. Zhou Yuishan remained silent, took my hand, and tore off his sweat towel to press on my wound. His fingers were cold, but his movements were extremely gentle. Treat. He considered it and didn't let go. Once this matter is settled, I will ask His Highness for mercy. Tell me what you want most. I will do whatever I can for you. The pain in my lower abdomen became more and more obvious. I bent over in the quilt, curled myself into a ball, and tried my best not to make any extra noise. He put his hand on my back through the quilt and patted it gently, as if trying to relieve my pain. I grabbed his hand and threw it aside. Cold sweat soaked the roots of my hair and slid down my cheeks. I looked at him and sneered. What do I want? I want freedom. Can you give it to me? I am who I want to be, and I will never do anything for anyone else. Are you willing to do the same? My lord, drawing cakes is the most immoral thing. Don't draw them next time. I can't eat them. Zhou Yuishan is gone. He never showed up again until I was sent to the palace. I was still assigned to Chang Wenguan. The difference is that this time the queen didn't ask me to send her anything again. Perhaps because they were afraid of Xiao Yuanchu, who did not play by the rules. Zhou Yuishan and the prince mentioned that it would be safest not to let Xiao Yuanchu see me. I was imprisoned in Chang Wenguan by several palace servants for various reasons. And every day I had to sort out endless books and record endless classics. But that doesn't matter. The fact that the emperor reopened the Chang Wenguan and summoned Liang Ji to the palace to serve as a female historian was in itself the work of Xiao Yuanchu. What's more, Chang Wenguan was definitely the place that concubine Mu valued the most back then. If I can't get out, can't he get in? After all, I am now the most studious and diligent lady in Chang Wenguan. He will definitely see me. As long as he sees me, I have a chance. 60. I suspect Xiao Yuanchu has some special obsession with throwing stones. The first time I saw him, he was leaning on the wall and throwing stones at me, 2 at a time. The second time I saw him, he was leaning on the window and throwing stones at me, 2 at a time. I looked at the stones falling from the sky and rolling around beside my pen, then looked at Xiao Yuanchu who was leaning on the window and smiling at me with his big white teeth. And once again I felt a familiar sense of powerlessness. Which palace did you come from? Why have I never seen you before? He skillfully climbed over the window, stepped on the footrest I had placed by the window, rubbed his hands, and came over to me with a familiar look to look at what I was copying. Then I saw that after seeing what was on my paper, his expression changed little by little. I didn't transcribe any text at all. Spread out in front of me was a half-colored painting. The vast sea of sea sponges stretches to the horizon, and the reefs are scattered randomly near the coast. A beautiful woman with a human body and a mermaid tail is sitting on the reef. Her hair is bright red. Xiao Yuanchu mentioned to me that concubine Mu had told him many bizarre bedtime stories, including those about a monster that could live in the sea, a monster with a human body and a fish tail, a monster that was so kind that it was almost stupid, and a princess who was forced to sleep after eating a poisoned apple because she trusted others too easily. Besides me, he is the only one who can understand what I am drawing. His palm pressed on my drawing paper. I could hear the suppressed tremor in his voice. Who are you? I stood up and took a small step back. I am Shan Yang, a servant girl, who was sent by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince to be a female historian in Chang Wenguan. I sold the item so happily that Xiao Yuanchu was shocked by my frankness and didn't say anything for a while. I reached out to him, just as he had reached out to me that time. But I have another name. My name is Xiaomingru. Shan Yang's words are unreliable. Are you willing to listen to what Xiaomingru says? It doesn't matter if you can't remember. I just need to remember it. If only. As long as you trust me. That's all. This time, no matter what, I will never just hide under your wings and not be able to help in any way. I quickly went over the prince's plan for this round with Xiao Yuanchu. The gist of it is that the prince must be strictly investigating Xiao Yuanchu's spies in the palace right now, to prevent him from discovering his plan to poison the emperor so that his father could be laid off early. And I was the one carefully selected by the prince to be sent in, the vixen who most resembled concubine Mu, so that I could work together with the queen to slay the dragon in one fell swoop. Xiao Yuanchu was stunned by what I said. Finally, she looked me up and down and raised some soul-searching questions. Just you. Seducing the emperor. Thank you. Last round your dad questioned my ability to seduce you. This round you question my ability to seduce your dad. You two really are worthy of being father and mother. I was so insulted that I slammed the table. Whether they look alike or not is another matter. Just tell me whether they look alike or not. Very good. This time it is Xiao Yuanchu's turn to have a wonderful expression on his face. I reached out my hand again, forced my palm together with his, and shook it up and down a few times. Anyway, Your Highness, we have a pleasant cooperation. Although the prince is still very wary of me and refuses to reveal any more details. As long as you ask, no matter what the news is, I will do my best to find out for you. Besides, it's better to kill someone by mistake than to let him go. Even if Your Highness thinks I'm lying to you, there's no harm in checking it out. It would be best if His Majesty could find out the Crown Prince's fault now. Depose him, and make you the heir, and put an end to it all. Xiao Yuanchu once again showed a speechless expression as if he was looking at a fool, and praised me solemnly. Very good. I really listened to your words tonight. If I have any doubts next time, I will definitely come to you again. Well, it seems that my predecessor, the imperial concubine, was also a scholar of nonsense literature before she traveled through time. Without Xiao Yuanchu's sudden impulse to intercept me, my days in Chongwengguan were relatively leisurely. The emperor did not take the initiative to go to Chongwengguan as the prince had expected. I couldn't even take the first step in my career as a concubine who brought disaster to the country and the people. So much so that in the end I started to worry about Xiao Yuanchu. They all say fishing enforcement is fishing enforcement. Now there is no trace of the fish. How can we catch them? But fortunately, the prince is more anxious than me. Finally, one night, the little palace maid quietly handed me a note under the pretext of delivering midnight snacks. Let me ambush in a certain place at a certain moment waiting for the emperor to pass by, and give him an immersive experience of recreating the scene of his first encounter with concubine Mu. The draft of the article has been written for me. I turned around and presented the treasure to Xiao Yuanchu. Look. I told you the prince must have this plan. It's a pity that I can't alert the enemy. Otherwise I can hand that little palace maid over to Xiao Yuanchu to clear my name. Xiao Yuanchu got a headache from my noise and rubbed his forehead with his hand. Okay, I get it. If it's there, then it's there. Why make a fuss? My eyes were burning. That poisoning thing. Xiao Yuanchu glanced at me inside, feeling disappointed. Catching thieves and taking stolen goods. Catching an adulterer. Poisoning. Unless the queen happened to be caught spilling the poison in your majesty's bowl. Otherwise she can just pick someone else to take the blame. At most, she will be charged with teaching her servants bad things. He rubbed my head, messing up my hair which I had combed with great difficulty. Tell me, if you were serving the emperor, who would the queen want to blame the most? Excuse me, even if I got the correct answer in advance, I could still fail on the problem-solving steps. I deserved to fail advanced mathematics. The queen hated concubine Mu during her lifetime. Now that I am standing firm and fearlessly, am I not the best material to take the blame? Whether I succeed or not, I'm dead. It turns out that those who play politics are all dirty-minded. In order to avoid arousing the prince's suspicion, Xiao Yuanchu suggested that I should follow what was written on the note. Bring all the equipment and go to stop the emperor. The outcome is uncertain, but the attitude must be correct. In order to prevent me from being lazy, he specially sent me to the edge of the field and watched me squat in the right position before leaving. Then I waited in vain. That night, let alone the emperor, I didn't even wait for a eunuch. I squatted on the long street with my neck hunched and shivering with cold. He trembled and cursed the riddle man, wishing him a bad death. From Zhou Yuashan to the prince and then to Xiao Yuanchu, every one of them is not a good person. The familiar sound of metal and iron came from afar. The noise and bustle blew faintly into my ears along with the morning breeze. I stood up suddenly and jumped up and down to hear more clearly. That direction seems. It happens to be the emperor's bedroom. What happened in the palace that night? My heart went cold. Logically speaking, no matter how remote the place where I was hiding was, there would definitely be guards patrolling in the palace. The only explanation is that the guards were too busy to take care of this place that night. Did the prince discover my betrayal and launch an attack in advance? Or did Xiao Yuanchu finally get hold of something that was against the prince and start fighting back? I ran away. Thanks to Xiao Yuanchu's mischief last time, He took me on the road to the Qianqing Palace. He clearly knew that I would never be able to wait for the emperor here. So why did he insist on sending me here in person and repeatedly told me not to go back the whole night? Unless he already knew that there would be unusual changes in the palace tonight. At that moment, I hated my late realization. There are so many clues right in front of me. Why can't I think about it a little more? The Qianqing Palace was surrounded by guards like an iron barrel. I don't know whether it was because the prince was hasty in his preparations or because Xiao Yuanchu came in a hurry. But the guards surrounding the palace gate were not divided into black and silver armors. Before I could get close to the palace gate, I was grabbed by a guard and thrown to the ground. Which palace are you from? How dare you trespass into His Majesty's bedroom? The shiny sword was unsheathed and placed against my neck and face. 4 or 5 guards surrounded me, and the one who was pressing me even put his knee on my back. Brother, please at least see that I am a woman who doesn't even have a knife. Even an assassin wouldn't come here alone. Zhou Yueshan's voice rang out outside the circle of people. Be brave and let her go. He pushed through the crowd and squeezed into the circle, then picked me up from the ground. Why are you here? I moved my arms and ran inside after him. Didn't the crown prince ask me to wait for His Majesty at Lingji Palace? I waited all night but didn't see a single ghost. Then I heard there was a commotion here, so I came to take a look. Zhou Yu staggered at the foot of the mountain and almost fell flat on his face. I really didn't realize before how courageous you are. He stopped and waited for me for a while. Seeing that I couldn't run anymore, he deliberately slowed down his pace. There's turmoil in the palace, and others can't even hide away. But you're here to watch the fun. If I hadn't happened to be here, the guard would have thought you were an assassin and killed you, which would have been a great achievement. A team of guards came towards us. An idea flashed through my mind, and I reached out and grabbed the corner of Zhou Yueshan's clothes. He stopped because of my lead. What's up? I took a half step forward and put my arms around his waist. Prince. My palms were bruised from falling to the ground, and my voice was shaky. The prince won, didn't he? I pressed my face against his back. Will you still? I paused and asked the question hesitantly. Will you let me do it again? Zhou Yueshan was caught off guard by my hug. He froze for a moment, then softened his voice. I'm sorry for that time. He didn't finish his words. I let him go. The dagger penetrated his waist and abdomen, and the blood slowly soaked into his turquoise-green official uniform. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I walked around to his front and looked at him expressionlessly. I don't care if you can do it or not, but now you definitely can't do it. In the Qianqing Palace, Xiao Yuanchu must have won. The reason is simple. Half of the guards who just passed by were familiar faces. They were the personal guards of the prince's palace that Xiao Yuanchu was going to leave for me last time. Once Zhou Yueshan enters the hall, he will definitely kill me first and reset time. Zhou Yueshan, who is able to come back, will be Xiao Yuanchu's biggest obstacle. Whatever the reason, I had to do it. When I entered the hall, Xiao Yuanchu was going through a process of abdication with the emperor that showed a loving father and a filial son. One of them cried bitterly and said that he had always been his father's good son in his life, and he was determined not to take advantage of the situation and let the emperor abdicate at this time. The other one beat his chest and stamped his feet, regretting that he had misjudged people in the first place. Now he felt ashamed of heaven and earth and had to abdicate and let others take over. Otherwise, he would be a sinner who had neglected the country and the people for all eternity. The crown prince and the queen were tied up and tied aside to watch this vivid abdication scene for free. Several old ministers who were very close to Xiao Yuanchu privately fanned the flames, sometimes playing the good guy and advising Xiao Yuanchu to obey the will of heaven, and sometimes playing the good guy and praising the emperor for being sensible. The whole hall was noisy and no one noticed that I was there. In the end, Xiao Yuanchu cried so much that he hiccuped and fainted, and then he had the emperor taken back to the back hall for resettlement. Xiao Yuanchu continued to play the role of the filial eldest son, staying behind to share his father's worries and deal with the former prince and queen who attempted to rebel. I quietly huddled aside, and very conscientiously served as the background for the entire show. Xiao Yuanchu dismissed everyone and finally saw me standing behind the pillar. You finally found me. He walked over to me and pulled me to sit on the ground. I didn't want you to see it. I held a purse in my hand, spinning it back and forth between my fingers. What don't you want me to see? Xiao Yuanchu tried to snatch the purse from my hand. But I dodged him. I was the one who forced the queen to abdicate. I was the one who poisoned her and then framed her. I tricked the crown prince into the palace by forging an imperial edict. He paused, took a deep breath, and seemed to be hesitant. Will you be disappointed? I slowly opened the purse and poured out the golden Qilin seal inside. Just now outside the door, I killed Zhou Yuashan. He and the crown prince are in the same party. He was the one who found me in the marquis's mansion and said that I looked like the imperial concubine. So he asked the crown prince to send me to the palace. If I don't kill him, he will kill me. I turned my head to look at Xiao Yuanchu. And you? Are you disappointed in me? The early morning sunlight shone into the hall, once again casting a golden hue on the young prince's face. Just like when he first met me, the sunlight slowly shone into his eyes, making him look particularly energetic. I handed over the seal. 3 sentences determine my life or death. This is the second time he gave me his prince's seal. Both times, no matter whether he found me first or I found him first, he was willing to show me his back unconditionally. I know what that means. Trust with all your heart. He passed his fingers through mine and took my hand to hold the seal. My mother told me that the world she lived in was equal and free. Everyone, regardless of gender, could read and write. Women were no longer confined to the inner chambers. They were equal to men. As long as they worked hard enough, they could become officials or even be made a marquis or a prime minister. She wanted very, very much to return to that world until she died. He looked at me with burning eyes. You are the only one who knows what her world is like. I can't send you back, but I just want to ask you, are you willing to accompany me and turn this place into the world you live in? The surroundings suddenly became quiet at that moment. I could even hear my heart beating wildly in my chest. Plop, plop. I think, for this era, Xiao Yuanchu is indeed a complete madman, but I really can't find any reason to stop me from going crazy with him, forever and ever. End of full text.